So, hey everyone, and hey everyone in Empty Chair. This is the Dash Podcast. We're going to officially get started in just a couple minutes, but I just thought I'd say hi, give everyone a sunshiny face. Still in the process of sharing this out everywhere, but there will be a couple other people joining at some point, and I have like another like 3 hours blocked out for this, so feel free to come and go during this time. And yeah. So, hi Halawi, hi XK, hi Ryan, and hi Chuck. Chuck's been a while since you've been hanging around the Dashy space, but I guess it's sign of the times, sign of the bear market. Just kidding.
Hopefully, we're at a bottom, right?
Yeah, probably something. I was making the joke about the new, there's all these memes just like funds or Safu. My favorite one these days is, can devs do something? Anytime the price is like, the price dipped 5%, can devs do something? It's like,
I haven't seen that one.
This thick thing do something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, can devs do something? And so, it does end up being like, why, blah, blah, blah. Everyone should, people didn't complain about stuff, but it is an interesting time to be around. Let me, anyway, so first of all, before we even roll the intro and stuff, how have you guys been? It's been a fun year, hasn't it?
It has.
It's been a rough year.
Yeah.
It's been a year of much change in the crypto scene for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what we thought would happen in 2017-18 with regulations has come home to roost now. So,
yeah, I think hopefully we'll talk about that in the show, but there's a lot to say about it, I think. And we all knew it was coming, but it's really starting to hit home.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I personally, from I guess my perspective, not been that bad of a year. I feel like 2022 was a little rougher, a little more capitulaty, if you know what I'm saying.
FTX.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole. That was the FTX thing, but also from the specific Dash perspective, that's when things came to a head with the old Dash Core Group administration, as it were, and that's just like that was that year, and this year is like the start of the rebuild, and I feel like there's a lot. It's kind of funny because, as I mentioned, the Electric Coin Company, the main Zcash development thing, got a new CEO similarly, and I feel like, I don't know, things have been, from my personal perspective, things have been a little weird for these last few years in crypto, because first you got in, Bitcoin's going to decentralize the world, and then we have the block size wars and the shitcoin boom of like the 2017 era, and then we kept on kind of like limping around in this like, let's get more and more pumpy, more and more VC, more and more corporate, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm getting a feeling, I don't know if it's true, I don't know if it's just my dumb hopium, but I get a feeling that this coming year is a little bit more of a back to basics kind of year, where like you get a lot more of the OGs getting back involved, you get a lot more DEX volume, you get a lot more interest in digital cash that kind of evaporated over the last couple of years. It's coming back. You get a lot more privacy interest, where then no project that has nothing to guarantee privacy is going to succeed. And I don't know, those are just my feelings. I don't know if you think am I smoking the old hopium?
I would align with that personally. I think there's like, there is a cycle, I think, that happens in society that kind of plays out in the crypto space a little bit. And I think that there's been a lot of malaise and recovery from the whole, lockdown experience and the fallout from that, and now with AI kind of up and coming, and crypto just kind of, I would say, for the most part, from the wider society view, just humming along, and the SEC and the agencies getting more, I would say, forcibly interested, because I think the world society is pointing at these regulatory bodies and saying, hey, get your fucking act together. And the SEC is losing credibility over and over and over again. And it's like they're being backed into a corner like a parent who's completely exasperated with 5 screaming kids driving by a McDonald's saying, okay, fine, I'll fine, I'll give you your freaking ETF and I'll give you your fucking, like all that kind of stuff. I feel like they're being forced to act and losing credibility in the process. And that's just, in my opinion, one small piece of like a microtransaction of a bigger movement that's kind of happening. And I align exactly with what you're saying personally. Like, I've kind of distanced myself from crypto in a lot of ways for the past couple of years, mostly for personal reasons, but also to kind of understand like what fundamentally brought me to it and why would I re-engage. And I feel like maybe that sentiment is happening with a lot of, like you were saying, OGs. They're coming back with the same principles that have been like tried and true, or just to prove their message or to prove their point. Look, I told you hodling was the way. I told you Bitcoin was the way, and now they're doubling down on their. I think that's happening in a lot of spaces. There may be some other people who have awakened and been enlightened in some ways, but I still think there's some fundamentals that brought a lot of OGs to the space, that there's like a resurgence of coming back to say for those people are there saying, no, you're doing it wrong. Like all these new kids coming up, making the same mistakes that perhaps we've all made when we first dove into crypto and like, lost our shirt on trading or got overexcited and hyped about a project that had a crappy team and we didn't know it, and we got burned on not doing research or whatever. Like that kind of stuff has played out over and over and over again. And like FTX, the freaking colossal version of that, where everybody seems to have gotten duped in some way, shape, or form. Not everybody. There were some people some whistleblowers that were trying to call it out, pointing at it. But, there's just, I think the espousal of fundamentals and principles is really the responsibility and job of OGs in this space, whose principles stand up, and it needs to happen.
Well, this might be a great time to roll the actual official intro graphic thing, because we already have well over 100 people listening, which hasn't happened in a little while. That's nice.
Oh yeah, can you give me the public link? I'll share it out to a few people.
Yeah, I'm gonna tag you on Twitter. That seems to be where X. It seems where things are going. Okay. All right, intro time. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy almost end of the year. Welcome to episode, was it 211 of the Dash podcast? Done so many of these over the years. This is just a year-end special, a New Year special. I figure we got as many key people involved in the whole Dash world and just bring them in and talk about all the good, the bad, the ugly, but most importantly, the cool stuff we have to look forward to. So, as always, we're streaming on X/Twitter. That's the number 1, but then also YouTube and Odysee. And feel free to leave comments and we will, we'll address those. And anyone, feel free to reference things I should bring up on the screen, like a specific tweet or a specific article or whatever. Feel free to message me, just not in the actual Jitsi link, because then that'll pop up on the screen in front of everyone. But anyway, welcome. We had a nice buttery toned intro from the one and only Chuck Williams. Why don't we? Who wants to start? Because Chuck already kicked us off. Who wants to start on what was your perspective over the last couple years in the Dash world? The good, the bad, the ugly. What do you think? Who wants to raise their little hand?
Yeah, just to add on to what Chuck said, I mean, specific to Dash, I've noticed that privacy seems to be more valued. I think there were some folks who were scared of what regulators might think, but it's becoming clear as regulators become more, picky about which project does what. I think we're starting to become smarter that we have to make the coin as fungible as possible. So there's still some fears here and there, but I think I would say a lot of people are expecting full delisting at some point. I hope not, but if that's the case, we might as well start doing a lot of privacy projects right now.
Yeah, I have to say on that note of privacy kind of stuff, it's kind of funny how like in a lot of ways, first off, the previous Dash world has kind of there's FUD out there. I was even addressing just today. People think that Dash removed privacy functionality over the years, and it literally never happened. But it's persistent because there was a narrative shift about let's see if exchanges can play nice. I don't want to like dump on anyone who thought that was a good idea, because I also thought it was a good idea. Let's be perfectly honest. I thought, oh yeah, why don't we just like straddle this line and like remain listed? I think in retrospect, I would personally call that a losing strategy. I would call something that was tried. It got some results. We can't say it didn't get any results, but it got some results, but it did not overall get the results we wanted, and the cost was far too high. And the cost is something we're still paying. Not the cost. We're not even paying that cost. We're paying a lack of results today with like OKX being like, we're going to delist anything roughly privacy related or associated according to who the hell knows what list. So
privacy adjacent.
Yeah, privacy adjacent. And I would personally think, from my personal opinion, is not only should we push the offerings we have for privacy out everywhere, front and center in the new year, but it's probably time to start thinking of some interesting ways of like cranking it up a notch or two.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think it was naive to think that regulators would be okay with us having just optional privacy, because they just don't want privacy, period. So they're gonna pressure the exchanges to delist even optionally private coins, and then B, it was also kind of naive to think that exchange operators even knew the difference, like that they paid enough attention to know whether we actually have retained our privacy, what level of privacy we have, whether it's optional or not. They just don't have time for this kind of stuff. And even if they did, they're just going to play on the safe route based on what the regulators, or what they even just think that the regulators want. So these guys are in it the exchange operators are in it mostly to stay in business, and they're going to do what they need to do. I think might as well mention the news right now of OKX delisting a series of coins. That it was interesting. Their official, whatever you call it, their official announcement, it separated them into two different buckets. It was like, okay, we've basically, what I interpreted as, we asked our users what coins we want to keep and what coins we don't want to keep, and this bucket was like coins that the users basically said, oh, we don't need that anymore, the OKX users. And then the second bucket was a list of four exchange pairs from 4 coins. There was Dash, Zcash, Monero, and Horizon, right? All privacy coins. In fact, actually, Horizon has come out with a tweet that said something to the effect of, we're not a privacy coin anymore. We deprecated our privacy feature. Kind of like, they actually deprecated the privacy feature. So total beta, beta male move to do, I think. We kind of did that to some degree. We didn't remove our privacy feature, but But yeah, we kind of did that. Oh no, we don't have privacy. Anyway, so
Relented on the privacy focus, I would say.
relented
Right?
on like at least marketing
Yeah.
privacy feature, and that was a beta move also. So I think Monero's going to be just fine, like because they've always just persistently focused on privacy, and that's great. Like we can learn a lesson from that. But I thought it was interesting how OKX separated the two. Like, why would they do that other than to kind of show that, hey, we've been pressured to delist these ones from government agents, and we're going to put them in this separate bucket so that everybody knows it's not just this wasn't some random survey of people that wanted to delist these coins. Like there was this section that we really had low volume on, and then there was this other section that we basically needed to delist. So they didn't need to separate them like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight, and I'm not to spoil. I have a podcast coming out on Tuesday, hopefully, with the new Zcash or ECC CEO, and he did mention something very similar because Zcash was in that thing. A lot of this conversation, it's the end result of we need to remove whatever, an exchange's decision to do that. There's so much that goes behind the scenes of that you got to like sort through and pick through. And so like Binance, as far as I've heard, there's no mention of Binance even considering removing Dash. It's just not on their list at all. The difference is Binance is under, basically foreign occupation, right? Basically, they're under the thumb of the U.S. government very directly right now because of all the stuff that's going on. And so you can clearly see their thing is they're being pressured by U.S. agencies extra legally, I should point out. This is not the law. They're not being pressured by laws and regulations. They're being pressured by the government to get rid of these kinds of things. And, for example, they're just saying, Monero, it's got to be out. A bunch of these other coins got to be out. Zcash, they said you have to introduce a new address type it's not even just a transparent address, but it's an address that only can receive funds from transparent addresses, just for these kind of requirements. And it's not a requirement because, again, Gemini is a BitLicensed U.S. regulated exchange. It's probably the most regulated exchange on the planet. In fact, they advertise that, which it doesn't impress me. But the point is, they allow for shielded, fully encrypted Zcash withdrawals, right? And so it's not a question of regulatory. It's not a question of Binance to comply with U.S. law needs to do any of this stuff. It's just a question of the thugs, not the laws, but the thugs are telling them, we want you to do this. And they're just like, sure, fine. And it was an interesting point of, I think the reason why Binance is in this situation to do this is because they've been, a freaking sketchy platform for a really long time. They've had a lot of illicit activity go through there. They've had a lot of like playing fast and loose and manipulation. They've basically done a lot of stuff, so now they have to overcompensate to earn their place back in the legitimate sphere. And so maybe we can also extend that to like the whole OKX type thing of maybe they haven't operated a perfectly, again, speculation, a perfectly legitimate business. And because of this, they're doing a sloppy, lazy, across the board move to just try to get back in good graces.
Well, I'd be
definitely
interested.
Is that.
I was just going to say, I'm interested in what XK thinks about this whole privacy delisting thing, because I know that you're a big privacy advocate, but also you're a big market player, and obviously everybody wants the price to go up. But what do you think? Is this, if in the worst case scenario where all the exchanges, including Binance, all the centralized exchanges delisted Dash, would that be good or bad for Dash long term?
It would be bad. Not necessarily long term, but short term it would be, because you're going to lose all the market makers, and a lot of liquidity will drain out of the coin. And a lot of people just still don't take self-custody of their coins. So on Binance, we've got hundreds of thousands of Dash in there. And you could imagine that people would be forced to, okay, they're either going to sell it or they're going to take self-custody of those coins. And so a lot of them will actually just sell. just the nature of the game, like the way it, people are in the space really just to trade it, and very few of them actually take hold of it and use it as a digital currency as it should be. So it would be bad short term, but the writing's on the wall. It probably is going to head that way, in the next couple of years, if things keep going the way they are and the regime doesn't change in the US, or because we're in that stage now where they fight you, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's ridicule all along, and now they're seeing us as a threat, and so they're starting to fight us. And that goes to show that as well the bill from Senator Warren, where she wants to outlaw self-custody, which is completely ridiculous. And so that's an attack on,
oh my God, yeah,
a coin like Dash, but Bitcoin, Ethereum, the whole thing. And that's just taking that next step further. But I think with just getting back to the Binance thing and OKX, I think with Dash, we already have just optional privacy. So we do the bare minimum. It's optional privacy and it's coin join, which is it's pretty good privacy. It's like PGP, right? And so this is the one thing that I'll just absolutely not negotiate at all with any kind of regulators or exchanges or anything. Like if they say if you can't have that, then that's it. I'm draw the line with that. I know that some other coins like Fyro or Zcash want to potentially modify their networks to bring them into compliance, but I think with Dash we already do the bare minimum as far as privacy goes, and scaling that back in any way whatsoever, it's just not going to happen with me. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely against that.
So XK, you're demonstrating something that I wanted to kind of point out to what Ryan was saying earlier about the naivete of people having these expectations that privacy would be respected on exchanges or in society and valued in the same way that XK is kind of invoking here. And I see that even in the Dash community, this links a little bit to the OG thing. This links to society's perspectives, but also our own perspectives. I think it's really important to remember, like I think you're being kind when you say that we as a community were naive to think that this would go through just fine. I don't think it was naivete. I think there were some factions that were even at that point that were splitting, and there was a lot of cynicism already present as we went forward. And I think there were probably at least 2 or 3 clear divisions of mindsets, both within the Dash community and outside the Dash community, that were, valuing privacy as XK does here. And basically, I think it could be labeled as naive to have a value of privacy and expect that other people are going to value it in the same way. And that's been there for me from the beginning. I think a lot of OGs who really understand, like they kind of know on some level, not everybody's going to value privacy like I value it, or understand secrecy and private keys or self-custody even the way that I value it. And I think that we as a society, particularly in Western culture, America in particular, even deeper, we've been so conditioned and grown. We've been raised in this safety bubble that essentially is like water to fish. We don't know that we're in it so much that people don't know how to value privacy because they don't know a world of tyranny without it. And so these tyrannical moves are happening behind the scenes, behind closed doors, in the terms of service agreements for your bank account and Google and Zoom and Facebook and the exchange that you sign up to. All that stuff is hidden behind the scenes right up until the moment where, oh, you can't do that. Now you hit the friction and it's too late. It's for you to do anything about it other than opt out if you're lucky. And they're trying to set it up. This is what I see happening. They're trying to set it up so that American citizens cannot opt out. They're starting to clamp down on all of the exit gateways. And I just don't think it's going to be long before they come up with a reason that you can't travel if you've ever made a crypto purchase or something like that. I think that's what Elizabeth Warren is trying to do. Like, you seriously going to outlaw self-custody? How are you possibly going to do that? How is that possibly even enforceable?
Well,
now you've got to go back to... people ratting on their neighbors. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, they want to outlaw ownership in general. I mean, they just don't want anyone to own anything.
You will
Meaning
eat
they
the
don't want
bugs.
anyone to control anything.
Exactly.
And this is it. This is, I think, the epic struggle that just keeps surfacing in all of these different ways that we see. And there are those of us who value things that are clearly on one side of the fence or the other. And I think the other side, where the people, let's say, they value the regulatory experience, they value the agency making the rules, they value the law, and they value being in alignment with other nations and international law and all this stuff. And that's where I was going with this academic approach. You asked the question, why would they trust this poll? Why would they even do this poll? Why would they even think that this was a right way to go? And I think it's that other side of the coin essentially lives by these pseudo academic measures. They'll do a poll thinking that all of the participants of the poll are informed enough to make a meaningful choice. But the fact of the matter is, many people will make choices or can be manipulated into making choices that are damaging to themselves, and they don't even know it. And they can live a whole life that way and never believe that anything was wrong, except that they were just a victim of their own existence. You know, I think that's the epic struggle, where once you take on the approach that you have agency and responsibility, then you're on one side of the fence. If you're a statist and you're looking to the government or systems of control to make sure everybody plays by the rules, and you're offloading enforcement to other people, you know, they should be dragged out into the street and shot kind of mentality. That's I think the dividing line that I think most people who really believe in the ethos of crypto and freedom and privacy they're not going to fall on that side of the statist camp, you know? And so that's why I think we have trouble understanding that, because we're not valuing the same things fundamentally, and they're not valuing the same things fundamentally. And so there's this giant chasm where we just can't understand each other because we're not even starting from the same like foundational belief system.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who do value privacy. There are a lot more that we don't know about, and they will value privacy when it's taken away. It's like it's the old thing that you never know what you had till it's gone.
Yeah.
And we will lose our privacy to some degree or another worldwide, let alone, and especially in America, especially in the United States. And it's at that point when it's unfortunately probably too late for some people, but not too late for other people that have kind of prepared for this scenario, that people will start to really value privacy. So I just want us to be able to, I want us, meaning Dash and all of the other privacy and freedom activists and projects, to be able to survive so that when that time comes, we're ready. So that's my main goal.
Mm-hmm.
And just to shout out one of the comments here, Grassfort says, "Hello, what do you think about the delisting Dash from OKX?" We talked about that a little bit, but I'm very optimistic about it. Honestly, I think that this is a badge of honor. You cannot proceed through life trying to get the approval of terrible people. And if the terrible people do approve of you, you're doing something wrong. So the terrible people disapproving of you just shows that you're on the right track. So I think if we can just stick this out and develop our own internally sustainable economy, then people will come eventually. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, as the modern saying goes, can devs do something? But the point here, though, is in a certain extent, devs have done something, which is gotten us into the Maya protocol. Woo! So let's just
this is great for Maya. This is bring all the volume that OKX was having, bring it all to Maya, and that'll be great, right?
Yeah.
It's only the fiat off ramp and on ramp that you need to be worried about, like getting US dollars. Like Maya's not going to help you get US dollars. Well, it does to some degree for some people, because they have an on ramp, a fiat on ramp that's
in some of the interfaces.
It works for some people.
Well, so
But
let me hit on
in
that.
general, help
that
with that.
touch, that thing real quick. As far as I know, OKEx did not suspend any Dash fiat pairs. Dash USDT, as far as I know. So
Oh, that's
it,
interesting. I
it,
hadn't really thought about that.
it already wasn't really a fiat on ramp. It was just like a casino exchange, like all those.
Wait, it was not a fiat to begin with?
No, I don't think so. I think it was
Okay, so they
just
never had. They would have delisted the fiat on ramps for sure
Yes.
had they had them, but they didn't. Okay.
Yeah, and so I mean, Dash is on Coinbase, which is a heaven sent. We need to defend that as much as we can. Now,
Yeah.
Spritz Finance, which is going to be one of those companies I'm going to really work hard with in the new year to get the most strategic kind of relationship possible. They were just purely a spend crypto, pay your bills, and then they had a debit card. And then now they added an off ramp for your bank account, but now they have an on ramp. So I haven't tried out the on ramp because what am I going to buy crypto with? I mean, but if any of you guys want to try it, I don't know if it's specific. I don't know if it specifically supports Dash, but if it doesn't, we need to get on that. And then once it does, you have that. One of their most requested features now that I kind of also gave a further nudge, but it wasn't even my initial doing, was a direct deposit on ramp thing, meaning you earn your salary completely in Dash now in the supported countries. So for the fiat stuff, that partners like that are super important to have. Coinbase, obviously, we need to hold on to them. And I hate to say, but Uphold too. Now, Uphold, I haven't used Uphold, but most people I know haven't really done much with Uphold in a long time, ever since they got rid of their card. But Topper by Uphold is a very good integration because it's one of those instant credit card buy with, and I haven't used it for many very obvious reasons, but from what I've heard, you don't have to do KYC for small purchases. So in the Dash wallet now, and anyone in the US should probably help confirm this, but you should be able to just in the mobile wallet go to like the Topper thing, put in a credit card and buy like $50 worth of Dash, and just without putting in your ID yet, and those are the things that are super important to have. Now, Thor Wallet has a few on-ramps where they have Mount Pelerin for European users, and for US users, they have something called, I think, Paybis. And Paybis, neither of those, as far as I know, supports Dash directly, which matters less because, you buy freaking whatever they got and you swap it over. But those are the kinds of things we have to watch out for. But the big thing is getting into Maya is strategically one of those super important things that, as like the flagship integration, we were there for them when they had no mainnet, no volume, no nothing. And that counts for something, especially all the shilling we have, especially we got an ad campaign coming up, especially all this kind of stuff. That really counts for something. And the thing is, once you get in there and once they start doing, pass through data on memos where you could now swap for something on Thorchain with just one transaction. Once you have the memo-less swap or the memo-less swap, so you can just scan a QR code on an exchange and just send it right from your wallet and make the swap like that. Once those key things get implemented, then you have access to the whole ecosystem. And so Maya's not the only alternative anymore, by the way. So we have Thorchain, Maya, and recently Chainflip is online too, and that's not 100% Thorchain fork, but it's considered a Thor child, right? They're all part of the same thing. And so Chainflip is a mainnet swapping right now. Next year, they're going to, is when Cyridex is aiming to be out, and that's supposedly going to have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Monero. That's their entire value proposition, is being a Thorchain style DEX with Monero support that then you can integrate and bridge with the rest of the ecosystem. So the resistance is happening. These are the new centralized exchanges, the decentralized exchange protocols, and it started with Thorchain, and now it's growing. And the fact that Dash is in there and now is getting conversations from Shapeshift, XDeFi wallet, all these different exchanges are now, all these different platforms are now going to be adding Dash because we got into Maya. And so this is the new ecosystem. It's like the rough couple of years with the old dino sexes going, and then I think we're good to be on the other side of that.
I mean, you can close your ears on this, Joel, but I think Spritz Finance is getting used by Dasher Spit. It's going to really blow up in the low run. I think they should be using it year round, no matter what. I get that, but
Absolutely.
What do you mean blow up?
Like in usage.
like we have the master. Well, people have master rewards, and I think that will probably start being used through Spritz Finance.
Yeah, I am a very happy Spritz user. I was a little slow getting on the board, just because I didn't really need it. But I finally got around to trying it, and it's a slick experience. It does cost more than I'd like it to, but for the ease of use and speed that it gives you, like I can just click one button and it's in my bank account. And my bank account happens to support the instant exchange where you can pay an extra 1% to get it basically there like instantly if I really need it. And before I was using Coinbase to off ramp from Dash to US dollars on Coinbase, and then I'd have to do another step to transfer that US dollar to my bank account, and there was some waiting between. So it's a good experience. I think people should try it. You do have to go through this KYC process, which I don't like, but that is, I'm already a public figure in the crypto space, so I've got my real name attached to my real face, and I'm a crypto user, and I'm not ashamed of it. So I go through that process. I know a lot of people don't want to go through that process. The only way around that is to develop that real economic model where people are working and they're earning Dash for their work, and then they're directly exchanging that Dash at merchants that directly accept those Dash, and then you can totally get rid of all the US dollar headache. But that's a long road from here, and we need to decide if that's really what we want.
Yeah.
And
I have to give a quick thought on that whole thing about encouraging people to, suck it up and do the KYC or whatever. There's a lot of people in this space that are really like they will go to Kraken, they will buy some Monero, they'll move it to a wallet they control, and then they'll act like they're Mr. Cypherpunk Zero and stuff. Like, okay, enough of the virtue signaling. If you buy crypto on a centralized exchange, it is in 2024. It's extremely difficult to convince the powers that be that you just don't have it anymore. Like to get
powers that be will
yes,
get that information from the centralized
like,
exchange.
If you move it to like a shielded Zcash pool and do a whole bunch of other stuff with it, maybe people won't be able to track exactly what you do with it, but they know you have it. And so at some point, in my personal opinion, again, this is personal opinion, everyone has their own threat model. I don't tell people to obey laws. I just tell them it's usually dumb to not obey them, for example. But I don't tell people because I understand taxation is theft and all that stuff. But the point is, you buy your crypto at the centralized exchange, that's already KYC'd. The real people talking to me are about how can I use my crypto? Or they always say, there's always like how do I spend it without paying all the capital gains and stuff? And I have to be like, well, look, let's be really clear. If you bought it on a centralized exchange, first off, I'm never going to tell you to do anything, illegal. But also, if you bought it on a centralized exchange, you're practical. Like, let's just be honest about where we're at. So if you buy crypto on a centralized exchange and you have a bank account that is super KYC, obviously, because they all are, and you're paying your bills through that, but you're doing all this in a fully not only fiat-based but custodial thing, why not buy some more Dash, hold it in a wallet you control, and pay things through Spritz? Because now not only did you take away of like the three big evils of custody, KYC, and fiat inflation. You got rid of the fiat inflation one, you got rid of the custody thing, you're only left to that one thing. And as far as if people want to be super cypherpunk, and I know people who don't have the choice because they don't have birth certificates or anything like that. They don't exist, and so they have to use Dash. And in that case, first of all, they hustle for these peer-to-peer things. They only will rent from someone who will take their rent in Dash, for example. And there's been a few landlords that have done this, or that in cash. And then they only do this. And then in that case, if you go to a business and pay them that, as long as the business on-ramps through the KYC thing, like if you have 100 people using Dash, you could have them all do the KYC experience. Or you could have 10 of them who just run businesses or whatever else, and then the other 90 of them do it all in like the peer-to-peer economy, and the on-ramp is through other people. Like they push that off. All you need is like one person who eventually is doing that through an exchange or whatever else to just basically make the circular economy kind of work. And so I'd encourage, if people are not going to put in all that work to, like I did, to convince my barber to take Dash, convince my jiu-jitsu person to take Dash, get my contractor, all that work, like the Townsville, Australia experience with the Bitcoin Cash group, where they're just like talking to every single tradesperson, every single barbershop, every single thing, if you're not going to do that, don't just give up and use fiat. Like, come on, get spreads, go reduce your exposure to all this stuff. Just start spending through Spritz, start spending through Bitrefill if you want to not KYC all your stuff that you do, even though the government knows how much you got. They might just not know where you spent it, Just do a few things. And the thing is, there's a lot of Dash people who I think that this is probably less than most communities. It might not be as little as maybe some people like Bitcoin Cash or Monero or something, but there are still a lot of Dash people who just bought the coin and are just can Evan do something? Like it's that whole mentality of just, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to vote in these prescribed elections every month, and my rewards will go up and everything will be great. And also, I think a lot of these people are very well-meaning, but I think a lot of people just haven't dug into got their hands on the actual Dash that they're a key part of promoting through running masternodes, for example, and voting and stuff, and putting their capital there. They don't actually touch the stuff, and they have no idea how. And I have to say, thankfully, I know a few OGs, who obviously can volunteer their own information if they want, but who recently have gotten out of this, not using Dash for anything, like purely selling some rewards if they need to actually spending it through stuff like Spritz recently. And so, small round of applause for those incremental steps that some people have taken.
Yeah, and actually, I know some information from you about in Australia how to basically pay. You don't need to even have KYC, right?
You mean the bill pay stuff?
Yeah. Bitrefill is working really well here. I think it was earlier this year. The service called Bill Fairies was introduced to pay any Australian bill, and it's just awesome. You can pay pretty much any Australian bill, so that could be things like just your utilities, to things like even your tax return, loan repayments, car repayments, because it's in this country we have a single system called BPay, which all the banks adhere to and all the billers adhere to. And anyone can pay into that account for you. It doesn't have to be, it's not like, I think in America, you guys have to actually KYC to pay your bills, which is really weird.
Yeah.
But here it's just like, it's just a number, like an account number, and you can deposit into that. So what this Bill Fairies people do is, I guess they just accept the crypto or whatever they've got relationship with Bitrefill, and then they pay the bill for you. And so you can then pay with Dash. And I've used that service a number of times, and it's freaking awesome. So it's brilliant. And with that, you've got the existing gift card system where you can go to the grocery stores here and get a digital gift card, which you can use Bitrefill for. And so it's just a great way of actually using your crypto.
Yeah, and I should point out too that it's not just Australia, which is great. It's great to have that on board. The U.S. has been the worst forever, and now Spritz exists, so it's the Holy Land. It's great, unless like someone like nukes Spritz. But if you notice, with all these banking partner losses, Spritz has just only been growing because they have some really good partnerships with like Chase Bank, for example, like some of the big players that they don't. It's always good to know people, right? But Europeans have been doing this kind of stuff for a while. Like, for example, on my people living on crypto thing, I interviewed what's his name? I'm only remembering his Jonathan Silverblood, who lives up in Finland, lives all on Bitcoin Cash. And Finland is a tough place for this stuff. It's like almost as bad as Sweden as far as hard to live on crypto. But he uses Swapin, like swapping but without the G, and he uses that to pay all his bills. And they do support Dash. So if you want to pay all your bills in Dash and you're anywhere in Europe or most of the world, Swapin will work. And they don't want to give me a freaking referral code, and I'm angry at them for that, but I'm going to show them anyway because it's a valuable tool. So between like Swapin and then like Bitrefill, most parts of Europe you can be pretty covered too. And especially if you just pay a couple bills. Be like, you know what? I have a recurring whatever utility bill. I'm going to just start trying to pay that with Dash. Sign up for Swapin, start doing it. There you are. You're already part of the economy.
That's pretty awesome. That's really awesome because here in Australia earlier this year, a couple of the banks started to limit people's ability to send money to crypto exchanges. So they made a new rule, whereas before it was unlimited, and they made this rule where it said, okay, it's going to be $10,000 per month. And when you do send that transaction, they're going to block it for the first couple of days as like a cooling off period or something in order to protect you, right? Always to protect you. But the funny thing is, this is something that is automatically opted in and you can't opt out. So it's just completely ridiculous. But, this just really highlights the reason why we are in this space, why we need crypto, because it's your money, it's in your bank account, yet the bank is somehow telling you how you can spend that money. Like, where's the freedom with that? And so it really just brings it home why you need something like Dash, Bitcoin, or whatever it is. You need to have some form of non-governmental money, which is absolutely free. You can spend it whenever you want, how you want it, do whatever you want with it.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a moment, because this is another instance of where, we're espousing values that we probably all agree in. We're in a bit of an echo chamber here, but you must understand that when people on the, let's say, statist side of the fence hear, well, that's not very free, or we need crypto for to maintain our privacy and our freedom. The first question is, well, what do you have to hide? It's this punitive, judgmental stance that they have as statists, because that's the conditioning, right? You have to understand that they're working from a mindset where as soon as you talk about freedom, you are now a villain. Because you have something to hide. What do you need all this freedom for? Don't you live a great life? Weren't you raised in America? Don't you already have all the freedoms that you need? Or in your case, I think Australia, wherever you are, if you're in a Western nation and you're dealing with a statist, or you're talking to a statist about freedom, they have no idea why you're saying that you value freedom. It's like the foundation is, again, completely missing. There is no agreement. You're not agreeing on this foundational tenet that we do need freedom. They don't think we need it. They think we have it because they can do whatever they want to do, but they're just not trying to do anything interesting that might make other people angry. They're just compliant individuals, and that's the way.
I'll let some other people chime in first.
So all I'm saying is, it's just there's evidence in the way that many of us speak when we talk about these presumptions that we need crypto. It's not going to go away. We need the freedom. That's not very free. We're operating on a fiat system and doing KYC. It's like they don't understand that at all. It's completely gone. That, like, the need, the value, absent, not even present. And I think it's important for us to understand that so that we can speak to it and address it like with all of our approaches. And that's where I was going to say, going back to the full circle of like getting Dash or privacy currencies out into the market, there is this tension in society between this tyrannical control of centralization that creates these systems that you find so valuable that you can then tap into because it's ubiquitous. And that's the thing that I think makes it valuable for a lot of people. It's ubiquitous. You can pay into a system, you can put value in a system, and now you can get all your bills paid, right? That's what we're talking about, is just like the model of how credit cards came about, how the Diners Club system began, and then Visa and MasterCard followed suit. And it's the same model. And I think we need that kind, well, we don't need, but I think we can learn from how that model came about. I think there is a base case to be made that yes, freedom is inherently valuable, but it's just going to be to a minority portion until and unless governments start to overstep. The Western governments really, really obviously start to overstep in ways where that push people into that space. And that's why I think they're trying to get CDBCs up and running, because they think that if they can get CDBCs up and running before they do this clamp down and push, that people, rather than being pushed into privacy cones, will be pushed into CBDCs, because they're just going to make it more incentivized and operational, because it will be ubiquitous. And so it'll just be easy. And I think that's going to work for a large percent of the population. I think we just need to be prepared for that and maybe bank on that, plan on that in a certain way.
Yeah, my spicy take on that is that values don't actually exist. It's only interests. And when you have, there's two things going on here. First of all, there's people, how people live their lives is so much more important than what they say. My values. Okay, what's your life? What's your lifestyle? If it's no different from anyone else, your values are bullshit. No offense, but like if you don't live any different from anywhere else, all the values we talk about are just virtue signaling to other people who say the same thing. So we're trying to say, I'm one of you guys, but it doesn't practically matter. Now, interests are something different. And for example, if you notice, the early adopters of cryptocurrency, not the early pontificators, but the early adopters are people in things like a lot of illicit trades or things like that, or political refugees or whatever. People whose interests, whose actual economic interests need this stuff. And there are some people who I would call kind of in-betweeners like us, who our actual day-to-day interests don't lead us into needing this stuff. But yet we do not only talk about it, but we also live our lives according to this. It's clearly in our interest, but we are kind of more of an investor mindset in that we see that it will be in our 100% interest in like 10 years. And we are investing in our future interest, where basically we are perfectly compliant and legal and everything. Again, again, I'm not assuming, maybe some of you guys are naughty boys out there, but today we are. But we see 10 years down the road a world in which the peaceful way we're living today could cause us to be debanked and stuff like that. And so we're investing for that eventuality. But it's still interest. It's still our own financial self-interests. And when people say, oh, I don't believe that kind of stuff, it's just that either they are short-sighted, or they're completely accurate about today, but they're being very short-time preference on that. Or they have their interests involved in being part of the owner class of people, that they have interest in a world that is not free because they're going to be running it. And so it's not so much of an ideological difference. That's just what people say to sound smart when they try to say like, well, blah, blah, blah. They're really just telling you it's not in my interest today, or maybe my interests in the future are explicitly the opposite of this because I'm one of the goons who's going to be kicking down your door, Chuck, when you're trying to use your freedom money,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think the word that I tend to use, or the framework that I tend to use, is incentives. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, like I've been married twice. I've been through a couple divorces, and what we're talking about here in a lot of ways is reminiscent of some of the evolutionary psychology things that I've been studying over the since my divorce a couple of years ago. understanding the dynamics between men and women, and there appears to be a let's say a delta between stated preferences and behaved preferences in both men and women. There's a higher degree in women than men, but there is a large delta between
social signaling.
Yes, and there's even the studies that have come out, like a woman's attractiveness rating of a man is less predictive of his success in the dating market than a man's rating of another man in his toughness rating. Okay, it's and there's all kinds of things that can be pulled from that, but the basic idea is that I think to some degree we all are victims of our own minds in virtue signaling. Like, we will say things that we think are the right thing to say to fit in. That's like just the natural kind of tribalistic base mentality. But I think, like, as I'm listening to us talk, there's also evidence of values, like real values that you may call interests, that I think our values are backed out of experiences, or and often suffering. I think part of the human's experience of suffering causes us to say, well, that didn't work, or this does work, and so I'm going to do more of this, or I'm going to do less of that. If you're a rational individual, and most of us are not rational, even, like there's apparently a small percentage of us that are rational, and we just do what society tells us to do. We're mostly compliant in that way. I mean, look at the Milgram experiment, right? I don't know if you guys know about that, but there's a lot of reasons. If you do your research, there's ways to find that we humans do not act logically, do not act rationally, do not judge well for ourselves or others most of the time. And so we waste a lot of time just pontificating and talking and virtue signaling so that we can just kind of fit in and not be ostracized from a group.
Yeah.
And then there is a minority of us that reach for the future and aim at something. And I think that's the chasm that we find ourselves
I would
in.
even call it historically an unsuccessful minority, because the human species is a social species, and it works super well. Historically, all this weird, non-irrational behavior is what has gotten us to survive as a species to this day. And it just maybe is getting a little outdated in terms of some of these tribalistic kind of tendencies. But a lot of this kind of pontificating virtue signaling, it might be better to think of it as negotiating for your interests. And so, like, for example, you see this all the time in ways like, for example, when Elon Musk says something out of pocket online, right? And a lot of what he's saying is negotiation tactics, right? He's negotiating with the advertisers, like, oh, Disney, go screw yourself, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
A lot of that is playing hardball in a negotiation thing, and he's really just trying to advance the interests of the company and the platform and other things like that. And a lot of people, when and arguably with like the Dash privacy discussion, which again, in terms of values and fundamentals, nothing has changed. But when there was this whole negotiation signaling of like, we're just like Bitcoin, was an attempt at the people doing that to negotiate a better outcome for Dash in the regulated exchange environment. And I guess the signaling on that has unfortunately is what kind of didn't pan out on that end, but the signaling also had ramifications because it signaled to other people. It negotiated Dash out of a club, right? A club of like the cypherpunks. And it's kind of funny because like Bitcoin Cash is somehow more in, despite having nothing in the protocol having anything to do with privacy, is somehow more in that camp than Dash is today, purely on a negotiation front, because it never negotiated that away. And so it'll be interesting to see when there's what some believe to be a 180 on negotiation, where people are going to be like what's going to be the result of this? Are people going to be like, why did you say this in the past when you say this now? Or are they going to be like, oh my gosh, look, it'll be interesting to see what people's attitudes towards Dash's actual privacy technology are going to be based on this whole thing. Just based on that, all of a sudden, the facts of you click this button, the masternodes negotiate, this goes around, and then the change gets burned when you like all that reality. All of a sudden, people's technical opinions on that are going to change based on social signaling, in my opinion, which is it's going to be wild to see.
So, Chuck, a couple things that you said there, I really agree with. One being that most people just want to fit in to a group. And then the other one was that people respond to incentives. And if there's one thing that I've kind of learned over my time in Dash and in crypto, it's that there are like the vast majority of people, they just want somebody else to figure something out, and then they want to just fit into that. Mm-hmm. But it's up to the small number of leaders to make something that actually works for them, that is the right incentive for them to jump onto and to fit into. Because the fiat world has crazy good incentives in a lot of ways. Like as far as I can see, most of the population is directly employed, either directly or indirectly, by the government, by the central banks, essentially.
Well, that's measurable. Yeah, over 60% of the American economy's GDP is from the federal government now, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Right. So when crypto comes around and kind of threatens that, we need to give them an alternative that's even better. So like, I know I keep beating this drum, but we need to give people like the jobs that governments and central banks, through the banking sector, through loans and things like that, give them. We need to provide that in order to bring those masses over, and they will follow if we give them a good enough incentive. And for most people, it's just being able to have a job that pays their bills, that is all the incentive that they need. Like if crypto was knocking at their door with a job offer that paid them more in terms of purchasing power than their government job, then they would jump over, and then they're still followers, but they're followers of a better system, as far as I'm concerned, and they'd be happy to jump over, but we just haven't given them that other option. So I'm always like, I'm not a very good reminiscer, or I don't look at the past very often. I'm always looking at the future. So I'm glad that this is more of a focused on 2024 than rather than like what happened in 2023 and just kind of going over the past, because I genuinely want to create a better future. And it's all about, like, we all kind of are on the same page as far as like what we want to build, but the strategies about getting there can be vastly different. And so I'm just curious, like, what do people think? Like, what do we need to actually do to get people on board, the normies that maybe they don't care about privacy, maybe the government hasn't crossed that line to where they're saying, okay, no more, I'm looking for alternatives. So what do we need to do in order to get those get the mass of people?
So I'll go. I have pages and pages of material on this, so I'll go last. Maybe get like.
Yeah, let me jump in because I actually need to go.
Yeah.
Halawi, yeah. I'd love to. So yeah, I've given this ton of thought, and actually all of my major projects in my life are completely oriented around this idea of building a better future, the kind of future that I want, that is incentivized, that's, let's say compliant, but, only in the way that it's not in your face anti anything, right? So I've got one major project, if anyone wants to check it out, voluntaria.community, 52 acres in Florida, where I'm building an intentional community, and we will build this together. If you want to check it out, you can buy in as an owner and consider building on the land that I'm creating in Voluntaria. We will run it as a sort of a commune, but not really. It's going to be a voluntarist group of people, and there's going to be a long vetting process. So that's building incentives is a big part of that. We're about entrepreneurialism, we're about families, we're about sustainable living, you know, all the things that we believe are good, but also freedom. And so I've got another project called the Doom Vitae that's about organizing, prioritizing, and incentivizing any human endeavor. It's like a project management system. I'm actually getting down to writing probably my fourth attempt at encoding this thing, but I'm saying all this just in answer to the question, what do we need to do? I have fundamentally landed on the principle that we need to build anti-fragile systems that align with the technological forces of the future. And I got a couple books that I recommend often: Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Anti-Fragile, and Kevin Kelly's The Inevitable. The subtitle is Understanding the 12 Technological Forces That Will Shape Our Future. I think if we understand these forces, and we understand incentives, and we understand how to build anti-fragile things, like fiat is fragile. All fiat currencies die eventually. It's predictable. It's just a matter of time, but many times they last longer than a generation. So people don't feel it in their own lifetime, but it happens. So my point is, I think that we need to understand or understand, as the spiritualists may say, these principles, these forces that drive the fundamentals of incentives. And I think even the statists can be won over if we can just make a really good argument. And I agree with you in this way, Ryan, present something that's better. Like all these statists are like, they just presume the state is the way, the law is the way, legal is the way, agencies are the way, institutions are the way. But we haven't really presented anything better, right? We as a community, but I think that's just a matter of perception. What we need to do is show the world how we humans are designed in certain ways. I use designed because I believe that there is a conscious nature to our being, and our creation. And so we are designed in a certain way, all of us, to do certain things. And if we can align with those designs, there is uniqueness among us. And some of us are leaders and some of us are followers. And I think that's great. That Pareto principle comes out in this way. We just need to understand these things to attract not everybody, but the right people. And I think in this group, and the right people just needs to be very clearly defined. And that just brings us back to the basics of tribalism. I think we do need to embrace tribalism, not assume that it's a bad thing, but also recognize when it's gone too far into like identity politics. And that's when it's too far, when you're passing laws and compelling people to say or not say certain things through laws, then we have a problem. And so I think we just need to draw a clear boundary of what's good tribalism and what's too much identity politics, what's good incentives and what's too much coercion, and be very clear about that and draw hard lines about that. I think like Monero has in a lot of ways, just by presenting themselves in a certain way, like the whole community. I want to say that they're united. I think there is obviously a lot of divisions even within the Monero community, but they've been pretty consistent about kind of raising the middle finger to compliance, as a basic rule. And for that, they've been rewarded with a committed community of people who believe and share those values because they've been continuously espoused. And I think Dash's problem in this way has been the wishy-washiness of, could we comply? Could we hold on to our privacy and still comply? Could we do the KYC and make everybody privately happy? It's this, straddling the fence kind of stance that I think has really split the community and caused them to wash out into other communities that have taken one side or the other. That's so embrace the incentives, the fundamental incentives that motivate us, that share values, and maybe be clear in our selection of what that, let's say, brand is, and take a hard and difficult stance and be ready to defend it. I think anybody in this room probably could and would, but the average person who is just waiting for that right thing that does align with these values that we espouse and virtue signal upon, they're not going to be able to defend it because they haven't thought it through. They're too busy trying to work and pay their bills. So I think you're right. The job offer and in something that is incentively aligned with their values is going to make it easier for people to come over. It's a hard road, really, to stand up for values in the face of a tide that's coming against you. So with that,
Absolutely.
I'll plan to drop off. Appreciate everybody's time.
All right. Peace, Chuck. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Chuck.
Yeah,
Don't be a stranger.
right on. Good to see everybody.
Yep.
See you, Chuck.
Peace.
See ya.
Yeah. One thing I think is astute about that, by the way, is the Monero versus the Monero signaling. They've always been very strong in the signaling. Been a minority because of the strength of the signaling. Is in not everyone's fully ready for that hardcore of a message. However, also that was like the Bitcoin screw the state sovereignty kind of message. And Bitcoin had the monopoly on it, and so Monero was only for like the really radical, people who don't shower or whatever on that whole end of the front. But then as Bitcoin has become more and more they're having their own, what I could call 2017, 18, 19 dash identity crisis moment, where they're trying to pretend to be, screw the state kind of money. But then they're also useless at that and trying to censor CoinJoin transactions and trying to become super institutional and like ETF daddy, please, like all that kind of stuff. And so they're kind of losing that. And then as they're shaking off and all the people that are falling, like the Monero people are going, like collecting them as they fall. And there's a piece of the pie that we can definitely get to there. But Hilawi, do you have any thoughts on that, on Ryan's challenge of how do we make it happen?
In terms of just adoption, and I think, I've said it before. I think well, in my case, I got into basically Bitcoin at the time because, I was a political refugee. I saw what capital controls did, came from a communist country. So I have the similar experience to Venezuelans and Cubans, things like that. So it was, when I talked to a lot of my in-laws, that's what I would bring up, because to them, just like Chuck was saying, there's no, they don't see the immediate danger because it is probably far away from that in some ways. It's a short time preference, but it's hard to explain to them like these are the small incremental aggressions that will lead to that eventually if you don't stand up for it. And once you do stand up for it, because you've noticed that by then they've already passed all these things that keep you under. And so that's just hard to communicate that. Unfortunately, my neighbors and friends, they got into crypto because of the bull run last time around. And there I was like, well, look into the project, look into like what's behind it. And I'd say maybe 1 out of 5 did, and they kind of stuck around.
Yeah, that makes sense. What you're talking about, like you're trying to pitch about it's coming down the road. As far as like we're pitching the better system, a free crypto world is a much better world than the current fiat world, but it doesn't exist yet. And so the average normie is at the point where they can get paid just as easily in Dash. They can spend Dash just as easily. Everything works just as, they can back up their wallet just as easily as they can like get into their bank account. When it becomes just as easy or easier, like you won't have to explain anything. They'll just like lemmings, just like flood over into something like that. The people we're talking to now are the people we're pitching investors. And I'm not saying literal monetary, like people to like buy a masternode and hope this does well kind of investor. We're telling people, learn how to use the freedom tools today before it becomes in your immediate self-interest in the future. And like that's, again, people like me, like Hilawi, like people like who see, who have experienced in some ways the kinds of things that we tout that the normie doesn't care about because it's not in their life today. The Huns are not at the gates yet. But so people like us are willing to do investor mindset things that don't. They're willing to do things that make, like, investing makes absolutely zero practical sense for anyone. It's completely idiotic to invest because you're spending money and you're getting literally nothing for it right now, right? The only reason people invest is they hope they get more money in the future. And so, but in today, investing is moronic. It just doesn't make, just so dumb because you're just spending money and getting nothing from it today. But then in the future, you get stuff, and so it does not make. What do you think?
I mean, I would add just real quick, where I did see where I changed people's minds and I was able to actually get them to look at projects was business conferences. Specifically, in my case, it was e-commerce conferences in Austin, been to Utah. A lot of folks in Utah just got it because they're kind of got that business mindset. They understand some economics. There's a lot more business mindset there. So anywhere where there's centers,
I can confirm.
I saw a lot with because I go to these conferences. There'll be a lot of Mormons, and I say a lot of Mormons getting crypto, and they just got it right away. And other
for very good
people,
reasons.
Yeah, they just got it, and so I think that's where we should. Those people also communicate with people who are not business folks, and I think at dinner tables, Thanksgivings, and dinner and Christmas, and all that, I think they're able to convince folks better than a cypherpunk person can.
There's definitely going to be a meme, a mid-journey graphic or whatever of, the Latter Dash Saints coming knocking door to door with the white paper or whatever. Like
there's a lot of overlap. I'll tell you, as a Mormon myself, a Latter-day Saint, and a diehard crypto fan, there is a huge overlap, both even with the stuff Chuck was talking about with tribalism. Like, we've all got our own little communities, what we call them wards, where we go to church. We have huge network effects. Everybody knows at least 30% of the neighborhood that they live in. So there's a reason why network marketing has taken off in Utah, and it's just because of that tight, close to your neighbors, because you go to church with them all the time and you see them at activities, that kind of stuff. That's what makes it so easy to bring products to a network is that kind of culture. And so go ahead and finish your point, Halawi. I kind of cut you off there.
No, that's right. It's just, I think, focusing on more small business owners.
There's a lot.
That's something that could be key for us now.
They're decision makers. Like, they get to decide, okay, I'm going to enable crypto payments on my website. And all they need is a few people to ask for it,
Yeah, and the thing is, when we talk about all these like social signalings and stuff, there is no such thing as a normal person, right? There's I guess it may be overlapping Venn diagrams of normal people, but there's people who are in a certain segment or pocket. And as conditions shift, I've noticed the kinds of people that are willing to entertain crypto have very much shifted. In the beginning, it's just super cypherpunk nerd and hardcore anarcho-libertarian people. That was just the only people that cared about this stuff. And then you start getting other people. Then you start getting, like, now you expand to just, like, the Vitalik people, like the nerds who are just into, like, just the tech people. The kind of people who are into, like, AI today are, like, the people who are into, the smart contract space and stuff, and like, oh, they like it because they want to play around with stuff, and it's just too hard with legacy systems to build and play around. And then you have like the immigrant remittance, whatever kind of segment that kind of comes in your little wheelhouse there. And then you have like certain political segments that, like, before it was radical libertarians, now like mainstream libertarians, like the Libertarian Party starts tweeting about Bitcoin a little bit, and then you get some of these like Foundation of Economic Education starts mentioning it, and Reason Magazine, like the really normie fringes of the normie segments of the libertarian movement start paying attention. And then you start getting like conservatives like U.S. conservatives talking about that kind of stuff, because I've had a lot of like hardcore Trump people take an interest in crypto because they are starting to get afraid of deplatforming and stuff, where they did not care like 3 years ago, for example. Now they're starting to come online into the purview. And so the idea that Dash is a normie coin, the normies are going to accept Dash, it's a phase by phase thing. We got to get a certain segment of people that are ready for the message now, and then we get another segment of that time has come, et cetera, et cetera. And so one thing I've noticed is like market feedback is important, right? And I'm kind of in two worlds, right? I am the live on crypto guy, and I'm also the dump all over Bitcoin guy, right? And those are two very different things, because I'm monetized on Twitter or whatever. And so whenever I post some outrageous whenever I post something about like, Bitcoin's becoming custodial, whatever, I get tons of attention. And just goes everywhere, and people rage comment, or they fist bump, they do whatever else. And so that kind of like superficial attention, I'm financially profiting off of it, yes, because, screw the maxis, whatever. But that's a very different level of attention from like the private message level of attention. No one private messages me to be like, oh, hey, I saw you talk about Bitcoin and Lightning Network and all this kind of stuff, the way this is shaping up. Awesome job. I want to subscribe to your stuff. Or no one says that. Not a single private message does that. They just public, yes. All the private messages are like, hey, man, so like I'd be wanting to learn how to live off of crypto. I don't know where to start. Well, can you help me learn how to do this stuff? And it's like they're very different worlds, but they're the same thing. And I've noticed the uptick of people from different backgrounds of the latter camp. Like there's the noise and there's a signal, right? And people who they're not just going to give you like, and through their attention to advertisers pay you this way. There's people wanting to actually directly pay me to teach them how to start using some of these services and things like that. And so that group of people, I have to say, this is like, I have a million things I could do in life, right? And in crypto. But what made me decide I think I'm going to like go all in on promoting Dash again is just came from my own data set of every time people say, oh, I want to live all off of this, and just like, what is the best way to recommend they do this? And I'm looking at it and I'm just like, all roads lead to Dash in this case, because Bitcoin, just freaking forget it, right? A friend who some of you might recognize, I'm not going to dox him here, but as I tweeted the other day, paid like an $882 Bitcoin transaction fee because he bought the Freedom Money message many years ago and was just taking small payments for his business, and then just now is like, okay, I got like a lump, I'm gonna like consolidate it, I'm gonna throw it through, I'm gonna do whatever, leave it for my children, and then consolidation of inputs, and just brutal. And so Bitcoin's off the table. What else works? And so, like, for example, in the US, there's two big things. What can you buy it on Coinbase? 2, is it supported on Spritz? 3, is it supported on Bitrefill? And other than stable coins and centralized garbage and super high fee shit, the only thing that checks all those boxes today is Dash. And so I can just tell someone, go to Coinbase, buy it, sign up for Spritz, spend it on just about everything, and then do Bitrefill if you want some more privacy while doing it. Now I could do that right now. And that's the big difference, because I've noticed this. Oh, we have a visitor. I've noticed this because over time, like people say, like, oh, just use Monero, and I'm not gonna be shitting on Monero in this thing, by the way. It's, it works. It's pretty private. They stay true to a mission that I believe very strongly in. But when you say that kind of stuff, then what's the next step? For years, it was just like hyperbole. It was just like, oh, but there's nothing to do with it. And then Dash Direct came out, and I got a bunch of Monero people to use Dash Direct, and then the Cake Wallet kind of jumped on board and started doing similar things to that. And now you have some things you can do with Monero, but it's just like, how can I pay my rent? How can I buy it easily? And just like, well, there's local Monero to do this and blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't make sense for a person wanting to do this, right? A realistic hardcore Monero supporter, cypherpunk person trying to live all of crypto would be like, you want to get Monero and Dash. Use Monero wherever you can, but everywhere else you got to use Dash. That would be the honest to goodness thing you'd tell someone and be like, you know what? Over time, you can find more people to take your Monero directly. You can do this. But right now, you want to pay your fucking rent? One option and only one option. But anyway, hi, Quantum. I know you're muted right now and you're blinded or whatever. How's it going? Can you hear us? He said, oh no, I thought it was tomorrow.
I think people are asking for. Sorry, go ahead.
I got the days mixed up. And I just woke up.
It's all right.
How's everybody doing?
Pretty good. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it today. It is time.
Ooh, I need to do my hair.
Listen, people will believe in your superior intellect a little more with a hairdo like that. So.
It's a little bit like Rick and Morty, you know, like the crazy hair.
20% accurate as usual, Morty.
Hey, Joel, I think people are asking for XK's take on kind of adoption on the chat, at least.
Oh, yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'd like to.
Stablecoin. So, yeah, I think that's a big turn off for regular people. They come in and they're not interested in volatility. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to convince someone to put their life savings into any crypto when they could be exposed to potentially 80% or more price drop if they buy it at an inopportune time, which they will, right? Because they're going to buy in when there's a lot of FOMO, there's a lot of excitement. That's when most people get in and it drops. So yeah, some kind of stable coin where there is no counterparty risk, and that would mean like it's not a Tether, it's not a USDC, right? Because we saw earlier this year USDC depegged when they lost their one of their banks, Silvergate. They had a bunch of money there, and that bank became inoperable, and it depegged. It went down to 70 cents or so for a bit there. So that just goes to show you how vulnerable the existing stable coins are. We saw an algorithmic stabilicoin with the Terra Luna collapse. So that doesn't work. But we have seen a stablecoin with, Make a Die, where they use, it's collateralized stablecoin using a bunch of assets. And that seems to work. So if we were to make something like that on Dash, where we'd use a whole bunch of Dash to over-collateralize the stablecoin, then that could be something, because not everybody wants to be exposed to the crazy market. I think if you offer them sort of like a 1-for-1 and go, okay, well, now you can get in, you're not going to be exposed to the volatility. Here you can spend your Dash on these platforms like Bitrefill, Spritz, whatever it is. It's going to make a lot more sense. I think the other thing we need, and it will just happen automatically, is that the governments will just clamp down more and more on people's freedom and financial privacy with CBDCs that will come. But even before then, like I've already had a friend of mine last year, they got paid an incorrect payment to their account that was made by a large insurance company. And they actually paid it to the wrong account. And when this happened, her account was frozen for up to a week while the bank was trying to figure out what went wrong and to get that payment sorted out. And so she did nothing wrong at all. It was just a mistake made by this insurance company. And it was like a large sum of money. It was like over $100,000. And yeah, her bank account was frozen because of potential fraud during that time while they were figuring out what went wrong. they found out it was a payment by an insurance company, reversed it. But the thing is, like, since they're trying to push us more and more towards an electronic, digital system, especially here in Australia, the cashless society, right? Something like that could really murder you if you're dependent on, having your bank account working to do all sorts of things, like pay for your supermarket, your bills, whatever. So that's something that pushes people, and it actually made her more interested in cryptocurrency as well. But what puts her off is, the chart, right? The horrible volatility. And obviously, with Dash, like today, we're down 11%, so that's like brutal. But even Bitcoin, right? Like it went from, where was it, 69K down to 16K in the space of a year in 2022. Few people are going to tolerate that if they're all in, and that's a big barrier, I think, to really getting people to adopt this and treat it seriously.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things to that. I mean, obviously how we actually achieve some of these front end innovations. Back end is, there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of argumentation, all that kind of stuff. But I absolutely agree that there needs to be that stablecoins are an interim tool that are very useful today. And the other thing, though, so when I was first, right when the proposal cycle had ended, I happened to be that night going out to dinner with some crypto people who will remain unnamed, and they were talking about Zcash and like about, let's hope, how do we get Zcash on board on this? And I mentioned that I was doing similar things with Dash, and they're like, oh, what are some ideas? And I said, well, first of all, everything needs to work. Like the wallets need to work. Everything just needs, you need to be able to just download something, it syncs right away, you spend it, it works. But the other thing I said, I would say you need a stable coin, like a private stable coin, a shielded stable coin or whatever, and you need a Bitcoin stable coin, a wrapped Bitcoin that people will trust and use. And like it or not, we're entering this phase where Bitcoin's getting to be this like settlement asset thingy. I am very bearish on the prospect of Bitcoin going anywhere in terms of the next 5 to maybe even 10 years. Past that, who knows? It might just become a dinosaur coin and just no one uses it. But the future's hard to predict. Everything's very new and stuff. But I do think that a lot of people are their mental model is, I need fiat to pay my bills, obviously. But then the second mental model that's really starting to happen is, I need fiat to pay my bills, but I don't trust fiat's going to hold its value forever, so I buy Bitcoin too. And that's just the dual mental model that people are on today. And it's not, well, Bitcoin, but what about other crypto? Like, for the normie people, no, they're not there. So sure, we can get some of the hardcores to be like, oh, I like the digital cash vision, I love Dash, I'm going to use that for all my stuff. But then there's a lot of people that are just like, they want to save in Bitcoin. And if you allow them to obviously save in Bitcoin, spend in Dash, okay. But even better, what if you save in Bitcoin and spend in Bitcoin, all thanks to Dash? And so that's the real thing is, just think about the struggle think about the market struggles, right? Bitcoin, people use Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin became harder to use. And then, so people were like, okay, well, let's do the Lightning Network. And then, anyone who's used Lightning, it has some interesting applications and some innovations and stuff. But for anyone who's used it for a payment substitute, the worst thing, like how do we get this far with so many billions of dollars into development, and how many businesses built their entire model around running Lightning, and you just don't know if a payment's going to go through, and anytime the fees spike, which is the entire value proposition according to what people were sold at least, then it just all breaks and doesn't work, and then there's no route, and we got to have a giant basket of liquidity just so payments can move. It's just like, it's the worst, but people still did that so they could spend Bitcoin. And now they're going back to, Blockstream's liquid. Let's do a trusted federation of where you need one. You can only withdraw your Bitcoin from liquid with explicit permission from one of the Federation signatories. It's just like the Hotel California. You can put your Bitcoin in, but you can never leave. And people are pushing this because they want to spend their Bitcoin. And then in the meantime, Litecoin is surging in transaction volumes, but especially on payment processors and things like that are like actual adoption indicators. And it's just because Litecoin's as close as they can get to Bitcoin to just spending their Bitcoin. And so I think the market's freaking telling us something, right? The market's telling us some people believe in Bitcoin. They want to spend their Bitcoin. And why shouldn't they be paying Dash network fees to masternode operators and miners to do their Bitcoin? Why shouldn't they have instant send to send their Bitcoin? So when's that coming out, Quantum?
Well, that's actually like a very hard feature, to say the least. Like, it's like building Lightning on top of Dash, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you just said how bad Lightning was. In the end, like, you want a system that's on chain, or that has like a remnants on chain, on a different chain, right? It could be on the Dash chain, but also this is the first time I've ever heard of it. So sending Bitcoin through Dash, or I've heard of it, but I've never actually thought about it. I would need time to think of a potential solution. I think like we should probably start with a stable coin though, compared to
absolutely
sending on Bitcoin.
Look, the way I see it would work is it would be a wrapped Bitcoin, wouldn't it? So the masternode network would keep a copy of the Bitcoin ledger. You'd send in your Bitcoin to to some address that the masternodes control. They all agree that we've got that Bitcoin, and then they give you back a tokenized version of that Bitcoin, and then the reverse is also.
Yeah, but there's a few problems there. First one is, how do you deal with change, right? Like, you have one Bitcoin and you want to send it to, I have one Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network, and I want to send 0.5 to you, XK. So let's say it's wrapped. Okay, great. Well, then, I mean, there'd have to be a settlement layer. Finally, I mean, it couldn't actually give change on the Bitcoin network. It would have to like give virtual change, and then it would have to settle. But if you settled, the Mastnode network only can actually produce a certain type of signature in, decentralized. Otherwise, everything is centralized, right? And it can only produce BLS signatures, threshold recovered BLS signatures, but Bitcoin doesn't understand those types of signatures. So it's not like it's not something that can be done easily, at least, or a way that I can think of in a decentralized manner. And I don't really like doing centralized features. Just to, it's not a good idea to do centralized features on the Dash network.
Yeah, for sure. To a certain extent, if there's a capability, people will figure out a way to do it. I don't like centralized stablecoins, yet somehow freaking Tether is like top of the world. And all this stuff is like, all this stuff is obviously not the Dash investor's priority, right? The Dash investor loves the Dash coin, wants the Dash coin to be sent here and there and everywhere, and like all that kind of stuff. Wants to price things in Dash, wants to price their firstborn child in Dash or whatever, or name them Dash, or whatever it is. But when you're talking about creating a consumer technology as a service provider, you want to do things for what people will pay for. And so to a certain extent, there's always going to be like, there's a Venn diagram of like, what is Dash's purpose? And then what do people want to pay for? And over time, eventually those Venn diagrams should like almost 100% overlap. But in the interim time, there's only this much. And then if we can expand that over and be able to provide more things that people want. And so it's interesting to just keep some minds out for like what would be some interesting stuff. But if someone could make a Dash, like a Bitcoin token, for example, or obviously a stable coin first and foremost, but like a Bitcoin token. I don't know. That'd be interesting. I don't know very little about wrapping and bridging mechanics on other chains like Ethereum and stuff. So I'll leave smarter people to figure out if that's possible or feasible, I should say.
I mean, it's always like you can always do things, right?
Yeah, everything's possible.
But
Question is,
then
what
the
should you
problem,
build?
well, yeah, and also like what are the risk factors, right? Is the risk factor that like one entity gets either like can just run away with 10,000 Bitcoin, or can one entity get forcibly like halted by a government agency? Like there's a lot of things like that you have to kind of worry about. Now, it's just we always want to overcome those things to like really get decentralization in our system. And Bitcoin is not very feature rich in terms of they I don't think they've had a hard fork since 2000. Somebody keep me honest. 2013.
10.
10. Okay, there we go.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So that'll be up to just the technology and the markets kind of coalescing. Like, if you asked me 5 years ago if I thought that stable coins should be important in Dash's future, I'd be like, get out of here. And
Yeah,
obviously,
I've been the same.
obviously, I think I was straight up wrong, but also it wasn't true yet. It became much more true, and I think that in 5 more years, I don't think anyone's really going to care too much about stable coins, or at least not USD stable coins. But that's just a thought.
Yeah, someone was asking about Dash Argentina. I mean, Dash in Argentina, like doing some projects, and I'll say if you don't have a stable coin there, especially with their super high inflation, it's just not going to work because of the volatility is even worse than to them can be worse than their local coin currency. So
Yeah.
and there was a What Bitcoin Did episode where in Argentina, and it was really good. This one part where what's his name again?
Peter.
Peter, yeah, he's like, hey, I have a USDT from Ethereum. And the guy's like, no, we're not touching that over here. Like, that's too high a fee. It's like, we use Tron USDT. And I was like, oh my God. So,
And I remember his comments on that. It was like a surprise to him. But
Yeah.
like the rest of us have been living in that hell for like a few years now, where we're just like freaking Tron, but like it's a big slice. It's like a quarter of Bitrefill's volume or something like that for a reason.
yeah, so they didn't care that it's a DPoS 21 validators where they eat each other and it's really 2-3 validators in charge. They don't care about that. So it's just what
Works.
works.
Yeah, now one thing I have to say about that, because I have seen people complain about USDT on Tron, like Latin Americans complain about it, is first of all, the fees are too high. They're not very high, but they're like sometimes like a few cents or like 50 cents, or sometimes depending on network conditions, right? But also that they need to have some Tron for gas. And it's just like, what the hell is this? Like, they just want to send dollars, but then they have to play the weird shitcoin game type thing to make it work. So
Yeah, that's how it works.
yeah, unfortunately. So I guess hi Marina,
Hey guys.
happy Dashmas. It's not a couple days later.
Yeah.
But we were just
Same thing.
talking about stable coins and gas for stable coins. So Quantum, do you, or anyone else who's more technically minded, are there any ways to make stable coins spendable for their own gas, or tokens spendable for their own gas? And I'm not necessarily talking at the root of it, but I'm talking about in the user experience, to where I have an entire, like I have a stable coin, like I have 100 USDT and I want to send it, and I don't have to have this ETH or Dash balance on the side that I could see. I don't have to keep buying some to send it.
Yeah. Actually, that's not even. I mean, it's not an easy problem, but it's not a very hard problem either. Well, it depends on the token, the type of token that you're dealing with as well. But for a stable coin, yes, we could have a contract just for a small market where people could post their exchanges, and if you would just convert USDT to Dash and then pay the fee in the same, like, as an atomic operation. So you would actually give Dash to, I'm sorry, you would give USDT to another identity. That other identity would give you a little bit of Dash and pay for the transaction itself.
Yeah. And now I know that obviously we're hoping for a better, like a more perfect option, but it should be easy to do this with Tether, right? Get Tether to issue something on Dash and just do it with USDT. And
Well, that's a business dev thing, right? Like, but I think first we need platform out or close to be out, like within a month, and yeah. So I wonder if anybody here is gonna say when Evo.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. So can you repeat that again? In case
what?
can you repeat that again? When?
No, no,
No, you said like, did you give a date?
no, no dates.
Oh, sorry, I misheard. Okay, sorry.
no.
No. Let's keep this talk friendly, okay?
Yeah. The when. Well, and if we haven't, those who haven't seen version 108 of the Maya protocol, he'll always got the memes going
Oh,
for
yeah.
the when of that too.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
but I do think that if we get USDT on and USDC and all the different stable coins on Dash, I do think the fees are going to be this very, very low. Just looking at like current fees on our network and how cheap things are, it's ridiculously cheap because we have a very interesting way of paying for things where you basically just like, let's say you have a balance and you replace your balance, you're not using any extra storage, you're just replacing storage. So it's very, very cheap.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be a fantastic thing right out the gate if you have a low fee stable coin with no gas fee that's shown to the end user, meaning you don't have to do this dual token thing. You can just have the stable coin in your wallet, and that works for the end user. And then you add into that usernames, and you already like made a decentralized Venmo like right there.
And we also have some trees, which is something that you should always think about. The balance is super secure, meaning that like the amount of USDT in Dash is always going to be equal to the amount of USDT that like the company. I think it's like BitOcean that owns. Who does USDT? I think BitOcean. I'm not sure. But when they put like a certain amount of USDT inside of the Dash ecosystem on platform, and then people transfer it around, it will always be that amount, right? So tokens actually have some trees as well. So you can never like inflate the amount of tokens on the network, which is a big feature. So your balance is super secure compared to
Yeah.
other
Yeah, I mean, that would be
chains that.
fantastic. And all that would be using the platform chain, right? As opposed to the L1 or as it were. Now, this is an interesting question about that stuff, right? Obviously, there's going to be, in the very beginning, a compatibility issue with most services as far as, like, let's just say Bitrefill they take Dash. They understand Dash L1, the first. And if you wanted to do like Tether on Dash, they would have to integrate basically a completely separate cryptocurrency, kind of. Is that sort of correct?
Well, no, they don't have to, well, it depends on like what they want to do. They could just use, our platform, and they could run a platform node themselves and have, full visibility without. I mean, basically the way platform works is that you don't need anything. You can just query, and you get back a value, and you're able to prove that that thing exists. So you don't need to have like this big architecture. So Bitrefill can just like say, oh, okay, what's my balance now? What's that person's balance now? And it will just like, and it can create like a merchant, right? And it can say, hey, did this person pay me this amount for this item in this contract that is made for this specific payment? So, it doesn't, it's much more easier to integrate even for merchants. Now,
Yeah. But as far as like transferring a token that happens on it, the transaction happens on a different blockchain or a side chain, right? Than the main chain.
what, you mean like that it happens on platform chain?
Yes. So it would have to integrate platform chain support to a certain extent.
Well, no, because the signature of that, the validity of that is actually uh, done by a quorum that's inside of Core. So Core can verify the signature. They just have to integrate the Dash SDK and then be like, oh, did this happen? I mean, I mean, yeah, basically just the Dash SDK, but most likely they'll like if since they're a big since they don't care about the cost of their service. Not they care about the cost of their service. They don't care about the cost of running a node, probably, which is pretty small. They'd probably run their own platform node, is what I guess would happen.
Yeah, so that's all they'd have to do is just upgrade their basic Dash infrastructure, and then all the platform, all the Evo tokens and things like that, just like show up for them in their service.
Yeah, I mean they don't have to do that, right? Like, but if they wanted to, just to have slightly faster confirmation speeds, like we're talking about, 1 second faster, then yeah.
Yeah, super instant send, and that's going to be something that I'm going to be focusing on a lot in the new year is hammering is the FastPass idea is kind of sort of trashing the FastPass category and trying to make that the Dash default, meaning that like there shouldn't be use these FastPass providers that you have a great experience and the rest don't, being like let's try to get everything under the same experience so that if you use Dash you can expect to have instant everything and you can expect to get mad at an exchange that doesn't do that. Be like, what the hell?
I actually have a slight announcement involving Instant Send on what a plan for next year. I haven't made this public yet, so might as well do it here. One thing about Instant Send is that, and it's a core feature. If people don't know what it is, it's when I send money on the core network, on the Dash core network, it basically gets confirmed within a second, and that is final. Like you don't have to worry about double spends. You don't have to worry about anything that can happen in other chains that could lead to horror stories. And it is one of our biggest innovations. The issue with it is that, if we had Visa level, or not even Visa level, like if we had like a significant increase in transaction volume, it would start to slow down. And we've seen that during some stress tests where, instead of happening in 1 second, it happens in 4 seconds or sometimes even a little bit longer than that. I think the max we've seen XK is like 8 seconds or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So we are looking into a new system of instant send, which is basically just aggregating instant send. And with an aggregation of instant send, we could see that scale basically, like infinitely, basically, instead of. So we're meaning what I'm trying to say right now is, with a new technology that we're researching right now. We're at the research phase, but it is very, very strong that we will be able to implement it next year. Basically, we will be able to do instant send and never have any delay. It will always be under 1 second, even under crazy load at the level of even at the level of like Visa or something like really, really, really big.
Yeah. I mean, is that Mr. from research who's doing that?
It is not Paul from research. It is the other person from research, Virgil.
Okay. Well, hi,
Cool.
Virgil. If you're watching, you better be watching.
Yes, and he's going to be like, "What? You already told them that it's possible?"
Yes.
It's being worked on.
It's not only possible, I'd say it's postable. But
Yeah,
well,
it's going to happen, and this is another thing to think about, right? One of the reasons to do this is, if we were ever going to go to a proof of stake system, not saying that we are, but if we
Yes.
ever were, how would that work? What would be the things that we would want different from other proof of stake systems to make Dash basically the best? And one of those things is, well, we want to keep instant send. We don't want to wait for a block that might happen in 3 seconds or 4 seconds. We want all of our transactions to be instant, less than a second confirmation. You don't want to, 3 seconds is not a long time, right? But no. In our day, we want less than 1 second. We've been used to that.
yeah.
That's what I want to keep. So we if we ever went to a proof of stake system, and by the way, for those people that are like, no proof of stake, well, there would always be a mass node vote, and it probably would not resemble any proof of stake that currently exists in other chains. So that's for a later time. But let's first focus on general improvements that will improve the chain regardless. And one of those is, well, let's get the instant send capabilities like to the max. And that will be like our step one in this path, that if we went to proof of stake, if we didn't go to proof of stake, we would have to do regardless. And then we'll do like a few other steps that would just improve the Dash Core chain, and then put it to a vote. Do we want to do the final move or not? There are a few things that we have to consider. Like we want to keep Dash uncensorable. For example, like we don't want a group of proposers to ever be able to deny an economic transaction, because currently any miner can come along and be like, hey, no, I want this. So if one miner says no, the next miner can always say yes, and we want to keep something like very similar. So there's a lot of problems that we would have to solve over the next year and a half to do that, or year. I'm not not sure how long it would take, but
Yeah.
You've already solved the randomness part with quorum selection, right? So that part is already ready. If they're
yeah, we have solved so many problems over the last few years, and the core team has done an amazing job, release after release after release, putting us on an amazing path to like on an almost perfect digital currency. So we are going to continue that work, and then once we're able to get to a state where, okay, there are no drawbacks if we decided to go to proof of stake, or the drawbacks are very minimal, but the benefits are high, then we would propose it to the network. That's not actually sure that that will ever happen, right? It's just, in my opinion, a very high probability of happening, that we can get there at this point.
Yeah, well, it's good to have on the table at least. But
That sounds awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah, can we?
It's the best thing I've heard all week.
Yeah, I don't mean to hijack, but Joel, if you don't mind, if I ask, are you familiar with the P2P encryption that basically Core is doing and how that'll affect things? If you're able to talk on that.
I'm not very familiar, but I'm going to guess what it is. Right now, like messages between peers aren't encrypted.
Yeah.
Meaning that like nodes in the middle could see, oh, this is Dash traffic, and be like, nah, I don't want to transmit like Dash traffic. And, you know, it's just better to encrypt between nodes. Most chains that I know of that aren't Bitcoin related do that. And actually Bitcoin, I think this is a backboard from Bitcoin.
That's right. That's right.
You know, it's just a smart move to do that. It doesn't really bring any new features. It just makes the system more robust.
Yeah, interesting. So, we have quite the interesting year ahead of us. Well, first of all, I think it would be fantastic if we could have an Evo.
What is that?
Oh, you're giving me both.
Yeah. So it's going to be close?
Well, I mean, yeah, we have no big features left. We have been working through issues, more issues and more issues. I have to admit that December was a weak month for DCG. It always is. A lot of people take time off to be with their loved ones. I mean, that is pretty standard around the world.
Yeah.
But we're gonna hit next year running. It seems like.
Nice.
We have, yeah, and also the doubling of the treasury really helps. There have been some people that left Dash in contributors that left Dash between October and December. And we really need to start replacing some people, developers. And that's really going to help replacing people.
Yeah. I mean, from my personal perspective, because I'm a selfish bastard, I would like to have more people on the mobile teams, because I want Mixing and Maya in them wallets yesterday. And I understand there's only so fast like the couple people can work, and so having extra people on that would be a personal thing for me. But also I'd love to win Evo as well. That's always a good thing.
We're gonna get into in my opinion, the higher the Dash price goes, and the more reserves we have, the more developers we can hire, the faster features can eventually come out, right? We don't want to. I really do think that our hiring spree of about 2 years ago made evolution possible. Without it, we would never have. We probably would never have released, or we would have released when I was able to do it in 10 years by myself.
Yeah, well, that's hopefully the hiring spree could be more efficient for the next time around, right? Because you don't have to deal with not to rehash old things, but it seems like, yeah, maybe we could have maybe not a leaner, but a meaner team, if you know what I mean.
No. Yeah. I agree. We also don't have to hire as many people, right? But getting 3 or 4 people in the first half of the next year would be, would just be great for the project.
Yeah. So, as a wise man,
And I
once said-
also, well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I also really want to like. I'm really happy that DCG can focus only on tech, right? And
Yes.
and you guys have biz dev and marketing covered. Do you guys have any plans to expand anytime soon?
You mean as far as the team?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's you and Marina, right?
Yes. So first off, we haven't started yet. That's like a few days from now. But the other thing is right now, with her current budget and pricing and stuff like that, we're basically just paying for the two of us and maybe a couple extra little services, like like a $10 a month type or $100 a month maybe type things. So that's where we're at like right now, because I didn't want to, over, kind of over ask or over promise for things like that. But we do have Dan Sessom on deck for doing some of those cool animation videos and stuff. Yeah, he's always good for that stuff. There's a few other people who have talked about doing biz dev or marketing and stuff, and I'm keeping a mental list, because obviously if the price doubles, and goes to like a giant freaking $70 a coin, it's not really the time to hire a lot of new people short term. But like if we're talking about 6 months in, we're in the hundreds, in the more than 100 especially, then it's just like, okay, maybe we have a little bit of runway to start getting some other people. Mm-hmm. But the real thing I think is Dash has had this interesting, it has this unfortunate circumstance of having money to pay for people, and then you have to pay a lot of money to get a very little done. And other projects don't always have, I mean, maybe the Solanas of the world have like huge coffers, but like the other projects get a lot done on like lean budgets and stuff like that.
That's not true.
Well, it depends on what you
Which
consider.
project are you talking about?
Freaking all of them. But my point
is, we can talk about Ethereum. Look how much they spend.
Well,
it's like 50 million a year.
Let's give a very like a lateral kind of a comparison to Litecoin, right? Litecoin has nothing for money, basically. And I talked to their lead developer. Seems like a very smart and great guy, but it's mostly just him and a couple of volunteers working on like the Bimblewimble extension block and other things like that. And the transaction volumes and everything through payment processors, our success metrics are doing quite well because of things outside of just paying people to do biz dev, maybe, as in they managed to become more efficient with that. So my point.
How do we know? How do we know who's paying Litecoin developers?
Well, we don't know 100%, but they do run donation models. There is a foundation. There's the data is out there. Now the data that's not out there though is how many unofficial promoters do we have? How many people like Charlie Lee use their nepotistic influence to then get into some things? How many bag holders of a high order in some certain jurisdictions might have gotten some deals done and things like that? There's a lot of that kind of stuff. And the point is, I'd like to get on that kind of action. Meaning, I'd like to see
what kind of action.
Well, I'm just saying, I'd like to see how far can we get Dash with a few good connections, and then we can expand from there, right? Let's instead of hiring a whole studio to do these super professional videos, why don't we have one guy and a whole bunch of Midjourney and Runway and other AI tools making it look stunning for like a tiny fraction the price. Like instead of a giant advertising budget, before we have the giant advertising budget, why don't we partner with every single company that stands to benefit from Dash users using their product, get them to pay part of the bill like we did with the Maya press release thing, and get all that to the max. So then we don't waste any money on advertising. So then we have an advertising war chest to spend when we really need it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just kind of the growth mindset we got going, is be really stingy on spending money on things that won't get returns. And as soon as we pinpoint something that gets returns, just amplify that.
Yeah, I do. Going back though, I do think Litecoin is a very bad comparison for a few reasons that I don't know if I really should talk about right here.
Yeah, well,
I
whatever
think
you,
you should.
whatever
That sounds
you
like
can
something you
go
should
into.
talk about.
'Cause-
Well, I mean, basically, like in my opinion, right? Like, yeah, what can I say? Yeah, Litecoin has a few like very strong backers. It also just it lives in everybody's mind just for being, coin number two, just a little bit like Bitcoin was coin number one.
Yeah, and also,
And
and that isn't actually. I think that was an earned thing to a certain extent. It was because it's not coin number two. It's wasn't Namecoin the second one? Litecoin might have been like the third, or I don't even know if it was the third. But
I lived through it. I'm pretty sure Litecoin was number two. I mean, maybe not, but I remember Litecoin coming out number two.
I'm pretty sure Namecoin was first, but let me look that up real quick while we keep going. But yeah, keep going.
Well, they were all pretty close. They were all within months. I don't know if it matters too much to the argument. What was actually?
I mean, and plus, like Namecoin was not meant for a light Bitcoin. And then in terms of development for Litecoin, I'm sorry if this is not true, but this is what I believe, just from not paying extreme attention to Litecoin development, is that they take features from other coins and just I don't think that they do anything very original. They just take other features and put it into Litecoin, correct?
Yeah, for that was the past. It was Litecoin is almost entirely Control-C, Control-V off of Bitcoin. The MWeb extension block has been where that was different because they did take Mimblewimble design, but they significantly modified it so they didn't have the same drawbacks, such as needing to be online at the same time to receive a payment, which is what Grin was like, for example. And that whole thing is pretty unique in Litecoin, even though obviously the core of Mimblewimble, just like the core of CoinJoin, is probably not developed by Dash, but Dash has like a very specialized, very worked through version of CoinJoin. It's kind of the same thing with that. But the point is, it's kind of funny how like Dash and Litecoin are so opposite in that Litecoin has done the. Again, now here's where I'm going to sound like I'm shitting on Litecoin, right? Is Bitcoin has done the bare freaking minimum, like just the bare minimum copy homework, whatever work, just to do what it can, but has in order to get to the marketplace it is today, as far as the leading payments coin today, I would say it's almost hard to argue that, right? Other than unless you want to throw in USDT on Tron or something, but they've done a lot with just so little. And so the point is, I think that Dash has thrown so much money into all these cool innovations like instant transactions, 51% attack proofing, really, and then the privacy function, and then Evo, of course. And I think with all that, if we use the same, stingy, I wouldn't say stingy mindset, but we use the same, let's take this much work and blow it up into a huge amount of results. If we do that, considering the big mountain of work we've done, I think we could get to some really cool places.
Yeah. Litecoin is not considered as a privacy coin, and it's not going to be delisted from the major exchanges.
Yes,
and
it was in a couple of Korean exchanges, but then other than that, no.
Yeah, but I'm deeply concerned that some exchanges are going to delist Dash, and we should be prepared for that. I just, it should affect somehow on Dash's price after all. And what do you guys think about it? How are we going to deal with this?
I'm not concerned at all. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I'm concerned that it will probably have an effect on the price short term, but it's necessary pain for us to grow up and be big boys in the economics scene. We can't just keep hoping that people will invest in Dash and hope that the number go up. We have to really develop an economy like real economies do, which is real economies don't depend on centralized exchanges to function. They depend on a labor force and capital markets. And the sooner we can get to that, the better. Bring on Binance. Binance, if you're listening, go ahead and delist us.
No.
Wait a while.
Don't listen to Ryan here. He does not represent the wills of the
Bring it
network.
on. Delist us. Bring it
Why? No.
on. So that we can grow the fund up.
But Binance has been nothing but good for Dash, in my opinion. They have stuck with us.
Okay, and if Dash has done well for Binance, then they will keep us. But this praying that centralized exchanges, will keep us on and just begging for it, I'm done with that. We need real growth, real user base, and we're not getting that from centralized exchanges. They're holding us back from that.
Well, I should say the reliance on the old model might be holding us back, but obviously we'll take any partner, any and every. Dash is for everyone. Every and any partner who can serve it, make it easier to get into people's hands, is always a good thing, and we should treat them well while they last. I don't think that the thing is, for example, like the Dash Binance delisting idea, in my mind anyway, is more of a Binance delist itself, and that's what happens to Dash's pair on Binance. Is Binance itself ends up going away. And so I do kind of agree with I don't think we should try to get there too soon, because then you could end up getting just crushed while other projects stay on Binance for as long as it exists, and then they're still around and thriving for the post-centralized exchange world. Just in the meantime, we'll take everything we can get. We'll take all the KYC services out there. We'll just be on everything we can. But then the truth of that is we do need to be building that real base of real usage, real people living off this stuff, real decentralized pairs, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of what we need to build our growth on top of that.
Both buying and selling happens on exchanges. So being delisted from exchanges, I mean, the one way to look at that is people can't buy Dash with dollars. And so we think that that's going to cause the price to go down. But selling also happens on centralized exchanges. And so if we're not on centralized exchanges, that's one less route that people can sell Dash to buy dollars from. And then they'll really get serious about not selling Dash, but using Dash in the real world, spending Dash on goods and services instead of selling it for dollars. So it goes both ways. And the shorting and the manipulation that happens on centralized exchanges, seeing that gone might not be a bad thing. It might not. And move all the activity to decentralized exchanges.
Yeah, so what I would rather focus on is building up DEX integrations to the moon and getting volume up on those things. So rather than encourage people, I'd rather get Binance volume to migrate to Maya rather than over time, rather than it just all shuts off there and then people sell their Dash for something else and then they're just out of the ecosystem because they don't know Maya exists, for example. So start pushing everything through the decentralized things. One thing I think is really important too is if Binance makes a ton on screw Binance, let's stop picking on Binance for a second, but if a centralized exchange like that makes a lot of money from Dash users, okay, first off, that means they're more likely to treat Dash well, I guess, but at the same time they get all that money. And so what are they going to do if they're maxis? They're going to sell it for Bitcoin, or they're going to sell it for fiat or whatever else. On the other hand, if a lot of this goes through something with an incentive alignment like the Maya protocol, even if people are dumping their Dash on Maya, not just buying but dumping, that still gets fees in the hands of Dash liquidity providers who are Dash holders, and it makes the earning opportunity from holding Dash go up. And so the more it all flows through that, the more we basically take the profit that goes to these centralized exchanges and gives it back to the people or the dash holders.
Exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes.
Get off the centralized exchanges, bring those incentives back to decentralized liquidity providers.
Yes, but not
But-
not right away.
But Ryan,
Over time.
we're talking about transitioning to
Yes.
there rather than just
Yeah, I know.
encouraging it.
I know. I'm just saying that. Sorry, I should give you more time to speak. I've spoken enough. Go ahead. Finish your point.
That was just my comment on that. Is to encourage this to go forward while we develop the tech, while we let Maya develop itself to become a stronger DEX, and when the time comes and there is a large delisting of many coins, including Dash, I think that day might come anyways. Then we'll have everything ready to go. So, but if we push it, yes, I see what you're saying. Like it could push our tech, but I think we're still in a stage where we need more tools before that day comes.
Yeah.
I don't think that we will voluntarily take those steps. I think those steps must be imposed upon us, or else we will never do it. Because the drive for centralization and efficiency is so strong that it will naturally go that way unless we actively push against that. We need to actively develop these and welcome forces that push us into decentralization. And I don't say that for decentralization's sake, but for security's sake. Like it's if we continue down the road of embracing centralized services, then it's only going to get stronger. Those forces will only get stronger, and then the whole point of cryptocurrency will be moot. We won't have the system that we actually want. We need to build that system.
And that's always like the dance we got, right? Between like the trade, like how much do you comply, right? Like I'm sure no one here is on everyone here has shown their faces for a reason, because they're not on the run from the government for not paying their pound of flesh or whatever. And so there's clearly a use case for that. But then on the other hand, I don't think, I can't speak for everyone. I don't think it's, well, maybe Quantum, I don't know. Maybe Quantum likes paying taxes, but no one else does. And so like most people would just like rather. And so there's those two, inside you are two wolves, right? There's the Binance wolf and there's the Maya wolf, right? And at some point, like the entire purpose is to migrate to the other thing. And I'm a philosophical believer in freedom and decentralization, but I also believe that it has a practical impact as well. And so for example, Thorchain, right? People are swapping a lot of Bitcoin on Thorchain, a lot of Ethereum too, where they wouldn't have to pay those network fees on a centralized exchange, but they're still doing it. And it wasn't until you had better price execution on Thorchain than on Binance, thanks to streaming swaps, an innovation that they created, that you have a giant uptick in volume, where now people are just jumping over. And so I think that 2 years ago, if like Bitcoin got delisted from like Binance for whatever reason, I don't think, or all the exchanges, I don't think that volume would have just moved immediately over to something like Thorchain. You would have had a lot of drop off, period.
Yeah.
But then the fact that now the alternative is there, it's just like if you just torpedo a cruise ship, a lot of people drown. Binance is the cruise ship. You torpedo it, a lot of people drown. But if you get people getting off at certain exits, and then there's like, oh, it's going down at some point, people get scared. They're like, I'm going to jump in a life raft. They get all the life rafts out. Then they start getting away. Then by the time the Binance ship sinks, or the big ship sinks, everyone is okay and already on dry land or wherever else they're going to be. But just like that instant Titanic effect, then you lose a lot of people. So that's why I like.
I got to run. I might be back if you're still on, but
cool.
If not, take care, everyone.
See you, Ryan.
Yep.
Happy New Year's.
Thanks for being here. Happy New Year. Yeah. So Like
Yeah.
services like
Yeah.
Spritz that let you pay all your bills and everything. They're KYC, they're centralized, but it's the alternative between not using Dash and using Dash today. And obviously, at one point, it would be good to just like pay your direct bill peer to like to your company directly in Dash, etc. But we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we need to be on more services, not less. So I don't agree with what Ryan just said. It's big talk, and I'm sure maybe he does feel that way. But yeah, it's being on Binance. I think I agree with what Quantum said. It's overall a net positive. I do believe that they manipulate the price to some extent, and probably been some shady things there, but I can't prove it. Just the way I feel with looking at the price chart sometimes. But there are some people that will follow us to Texas eventually, but not everybody. For some people, they've got their limits, and some people don't even go to Binance. Some people will go no further than their local, Coinbase, something like that. So you've got to give people the option of getting it wherever they can. So I think for that reason, Binance is definitely a necessary evil. At least
Yeah.
for now.
And like honestly, I think Eric Voorhees was the canary in the centralized exchange coal mine of he just like fuck this shit. He just torpedoes his whole company and just like I'm done. Cut the show. I'm done. He's just like out completely, and then he just DAO only, and then Thorchain and Maya and other shit like that. He's like. It's not like, oh, he's a crazy person or he just happened to be a hardcore principle person. It's he's dealing with the exact same grievances that every single centralized exchange provider is dealing with too. He just dealt with it first and got tired with it first. But you bet Brian Armstrong is thinking about the same thing, whether he does it or not. You bet CZ is being like, why did I ever set foot in the US? Like, why did I ever do this stuff? You can bet all these people going shapeshift is in the back of their mind somehow.
Yeah, I think it's also because like you get the easiest way to burn out is just to have no path forward. Like if somebody tells you go left and the other, like if two authority figures, one says go left, the other one says go right, and there's no way to comply, then you basically, often can burn out, or maybe not burn out is the good word, but you have it like stresses you. And these people are, have significant wealth, and then they think, why am I even doing this, right?
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
the grievance that Eric Voorhees has is probably larger than other exchange owners or exchange executives because they actually personally targeted him because he was so vocal publicly talking about government and regulators that when he comes into basically in the US, so he's a citizen born there, they confiscate his electronics every time. And the rule is they're supposed to give it back within a month. Nope. He doesn't even get it back. So they're breaking even their own rules on that. So
Government breaking their own rules never happened before. Shut up here,
I'm saying
Hilawi.
this is quite extreme because it's like they have he has a credit score, social credit score, and I think that one just became more public. That's all. So
Yeah, the other thing is his business model was very much more affected by the KYC requirements than a Coinbase, for example, because it's like his little swap for anything and just a click, no accounts. Oh, now you have an account. Now you have KYC. Well, why am I just not on Binance and Coinbase then? And then
Exactly.
it hit him first.
Yeah.
But I don't think that Binance is like, especially, unfortunately, Monero and Dash and Zcash and all these other ones don't really have enough trading volume to where it's really stinging to lose them. But it's enough to where you notice it. And I don't think like all the overhead. Think of the regulatory overhead. You got to hire lawyers. You got to do a delisting announcement thing here. You got to do the PR of this. You got to like. Eventually, they're just going to be like, you know what? we don't want to keep our own liquidity pools and all this stuff. We don't want to do this. We're just going to plug into Thorchain and take a cut. Be done with it. I don't want to, like, you don't want to have to, like, all you have to do to delist, you don't have to, like, you have this long to sell this. Just be like, hide option. And there you go. And then the same angry customers, you just say, you know, use Quadranance or whatever in this weird little DEX version somewhere off here, and you can still trade all those ones. Binance proper, you can't, but you can still do that. They don't, at some point, they're going to be like, this is so much work to just do business. What if we just did it in a decentralized way, or plugged into that? What if Binance was just the fiat on-ramp and a shiny wrapper to just rent seek fees from Thorchain and Maya and all these things?
Yeah.
And we just make like CZ obviously is a smart man. Trust Wallet which is Binance's thing, is I believe the number one source for Thorchain swaps, because they have Thorchain integrated backend for their swaps. CZ is talking about he's thinking about DEXs in the future. I mean, do I need to connect the dots for you? Like, everyone's thinking the same thing.
Oh yeah, he sees the writing on the wall. So yeah, now that he's out of Binance, he's going to pivot towards the DeFi space and do something interesting there.
Yeah, it's arguable that he already did that. He did it a lot earlier than a lot of other people, because if you remember, you know, like Coinbase's build on base, their dumb L2 thing. Binance was the original, the original Dino chain, decentralized and name only, like the BNB thingy. They wanted in on that DeFi, but not really DeFi action, way before anyone else was faking that stuff. Way before the L2 craze in Ethereum. They were like the first ones.
Yeah.
The original Chinese knockoff. You know, they did it before anyone else. And you think he's going to be late to the game in this whole DeFi pivot? Nah.
Yeah. He's got $1 billion fine though. Even for him, that hurts. So
Yeah, he might have to sell one of his planes.
yeah.
You know, rough times.
Joel, do you mind if we ask if I ask Quantum about the Senator Warren bill? About
Go for it.
okay. So are you aware with the Senator Warren's proposed bill? Probably won't pass the House, but
Let's hope.
I have no idea.
so
I don't.
the main part is that it makes it illegal to develop self-custody wallets unless you're a financial institution, 5 to 10 years in jail time with up to $500,000 fine potentially. And they're just thrown in. They changed the penal. I mean, they changed the code, financial code, to say that miners, node operators, and
Stakers.
self-host wallet developers basically are included. They're included as the definition of financial institutions. And
Well, first thing, I mean, I don't believe that would be constitutional.
yeah,
So let's just stop there. Let's not add fear mongering to like.
Well-
You know, any senator, any congressman can propose anything, right? There's so much crazy stuff that's being proposed every day by people that aren't really educated in, you know, the law that they are trying to propose. So let's just.
well, okay, maybe pivot another way then. So they included node operators. I think a lot of miners are companies. So, but with the node operators, that gets into something that's possible anyways. That could be somehow justified to be passed through Congress. With XK, I mean, this kind of goes into what you're talking about with I2P or Tor encryption for masternodes. I don't know if you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, let's not look. First thing, it won't pass. So I mean, it won't get anywhere. And if it did, like, it would immediately be struck down. As
Well, let me add the caveat. I don't think immediately. These things take time to go through the courts and stuff. So, if it would get passed, I would hope everyone has if it looks like it might get passed, I'd hope everyone has a temporary backup plan to stay out of jail until this gets sorted out. You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at that point, like, if
Yeah, that'd be a big problem.
that, it's not a big problem. That would basically destroy all of cryptocurrency.
Yeah,
It-
I mean,
In the U.S. at least, yeah.
it would make the Bitcoin Core team illegal, right? Because Bitcoin Core is ultimately a self-custody wallet, so that would be illegal. The Litecoin wallet would be illegal. Dash Core would be illegal. Everything would be illegal. The Edge wallet would be illegal. Our mobile wallets on iOS and Android would be illegal. I mean, the whole thing would be illegal. It's just completely ridiculous.
Yeah, like
Um,
let's not like.
Well, that's what
I
I'm
mean,
talking about.
basically, there would be
Node
no
on.
industry. I mean, even Thorchain would be like every proof of stake system would be illegal. I mean, I don't even what would not be illegal at that point, XK?
Exactly.
I can't even think. Like, oh, and if the question is, okay, well, if this law gets passed and makes all of crypto illegal, what do we do? Well, I mean, I don't know. Probably like then, you know, what would I do personally if all of crypto becomes illegal? I'd probably just like retreat into the forest
Yeah, something like that.
and be one with the forest people. If anybody gets that joke.
It's really weird because the amendment seems to specify that any software that stores a public or a private key would then, have to become this considered a financial institution. But a public key is just any old number. There's nothing special about it. It's just how you use that number that defines it as being a public key. And so it really just makes kind of any software development where you store a number potentially illegal. It's even broader than in the crypto space itself. It's just completely nuts.
I mean, I don't even think that. Well, I don't even think that some people that are writing this bill really understand it. Like it probably
I don't, clearly.
I think it goes through like I don't know how many. It comes from an idea. Oh, this is bad. Probably from the senator, and then it goes through like 15 different aides and interns.
Yeah,
and then
JP Morgan Chase gets a crack at it. You know how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, who knows exactly? It's all speculation because we don't.
Yeah.
Or actually,
She's made it clear that the reason is that the banks have to conform to regulations and these crypto people don't. It's unfair to these poor big banks. That's literally what she said.
Yeah, so that's clearly
well,
what.
I don't think Warren has ever been on the side of banks, but
Listen.
Have you seen her donations?
Yeah, you missed the whole Chuck Williams part of this whole chat where we were talking about virtue signaling and things like that. And so basically,
whatever. Let's not go into politics. I don't really care. I live in a different country, and I'm very happy to not live.
Well, let's hit on a slightly different, but on the same vein thing about FinCEN. Again, we love all this stuff. So FinCEN doesn't need to pass legislation. They propose rule changing, and then they decide if they're going to do it. They propose rule changing that would basically criminalize mixers and stuff like that, privacy, things like that. That's a much more realistic threat of happening in the U.S. Do you have any quick thoughts on that?
Well, first thing is first, like the Mastodon network doesn't mix. Mm-hmm. So, people say it mixes just because they don't really understand. But the way it actually works is Masternodes just, okay, let's say us five are involved in want to anonymize our dash, right? Mm-hmm. The Masternode network never takes anything. Like it doesn't take any cryptocurrency and like mix it around. What it does is it just says, oh, Quantum, Desert Links, Hillary, XK, Marina, you guys want to do that? Hey, this is you. That's it. That's all it does. And then us together, we as users exchange between ourselves in a very cryptographic way. Now, like, okay, does does the law say that people can't interact with other people? I don't think so. It says that it doesn't allow mixers. Now, that's why, as far as I know, there's never been any law against people sending other people cryptocurrency in the US. And that's basically what the masternodes allow to happen to, to permit CoinJoin. But they don't like take money and send money. They don't mix anything. So in that sense, like, they're not doing anything that could ever be considered illegal. If there's a law that passes that says, like, they're not allowed, nodes aren't allowed to join people like that want to do a specific activity, well, then there could be a problem. But like, I don't see that passing anytime soon.
Well, one thing
That's more freedom of expression.
one thing it does give thought to is it's kind of like the how does a network like Dash operate in adversarial conditions, and not necessarily. It's not a binary adversarial. It's not like it's illegal to do this stuff. You go to prison, to the camps with you. It's not like that, or everyone can use it unrestricted. So, for example, I think we might, like, just like we're already sort of doing that with the iOS wallet, as far as the on ramps and stuff that they didn't like, that they weren't going to approve in time, right? And there's already a little bit of segmentation of some products and features based on geographies or based on device in this case. What I wonder is how easily could there be a no mixing masternode type for again, we're not talking anything good here. We're not talking about this is not a happy outcome.
Stop talking about masternodes and mixing, because they do not mix. And it's like a little problem that a lot of people in in our community always talk about mixing, and we don't mix. And this is because it's just easier to say, it's an easier term to say, but that's just not what happens. Users send money to other users to create anonymity, but they're not mixing.
Yeah, but I guess whatever we call even if it's not mixing, the participation that masternodes have in that process still might be something that could be legally questionable for a period of time. Again, I don't think so, but if it happened, I wonder how easily it could be to...
So, I think the biggest problem is like a problem of education, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like nodes, like exchanges and people that interact with Dash, they basically just get a notice saying, hey, delist these different coins. Why? Probably no reason given. And they just do it. They just comply. Or they, and because it's just easier for them to do so. Then you might talk to regulators, and the regulator, like, from some talks that I've heard of, is that you talk to people and then they're like, oh yeah, we did a search and these 3 coins are privacy coins according to Google. What in the tech shows you that? Or like what criteria are you using? It doesn't matter. There's nothing you can do to get around it when people aren't trying to, find a set of rules that can apply here or there. It's just feeling at this point.
Yeah, to a certain extent. But there's also...
That's why Litecoin doesn't get delisted anywhere.
Well, as I did point out, they did get delisted in Korea in a couple of exchanges because of that, which I also think is silly. But the interesting thing, I was going to bring that up because of the Litecoin approach to things, right? So because of the extension block, that it's an extension block through soft fork, so nodes could not run anything, or miners could not run anything supporting this stuff, and it'd be completely kind of out. But the services that do kind of adopt it then could then use it. I wonder if there's a similar like possibility in the Dash world where you could just say like, look, you can just run the version that whatever despotic government doesn't care about here, but then everyone else can run something else, and then you kind of like it's like when Uniswap delists an asset, but it's like the front end delisted, but anything else interacting anywhere else can kind of still tap in. Or if, for example, let's just say Thor Wallet, pick one. Thor Wallet decided, or they got Switzerland cracked it down and said you have to delist Dash, and so they just disable it in the Thor Wallet, but you could still go to El Dorado, for example, and still use the Maya protocol to swap Dash back and forth there. So I am kind of wondering about things like that. Also, because I would love a way to kick Dash's privacy up a notch with some ZK stuff. Were you aware of the Bosel license, Bootstrap open source license that Zcash had for its tech? Did you ever remember that thing?
No, I don't remember.
Well, basically, Zcash was at the bleeding edge of privacy tech for a while, right? But really did not succeed very well in taking that to market. And the last ECC administration, I guess, they licensed the Orchard, the newest, no trusted setup anything, like the newest ZK pool, under something called the Bosel, the Bootstrap open source license, which basically said, well, it's open source, but you have to wait a couple years before using it, or otherwise get electric coin companies express permission to use it. So it was like a semi-open source, but not really. It was like open source. Anyway, as soon as Josh Swihart took over as the new CEO, he replaced Zuko like last week. The first thing they did was open source everything completely. They got rid of that dumb license problem. And so I'm kind of like licking my lips a little bit about like, I wonder if we can not even pirate, but like respectfully open source away some of that cool ZK tech for like an extension block.
You mean use it? Yeah.
Yes, or a sidechain or something in Dash.
Well, yeah, I definitely think. Well, see, right now we don't have a very big development team, as I've said. Like it's big. It's probably the same. How do you know how big Zcash is?
I could pull it up real quick, I guess.
Probably comparable, right? But we have been focused on platform, and I think that we shouldn't really divert our focus. We're pretty close to that goal. And one thing that what we were talking about earlier was use cases for Dash. And one thing that I strongly believe is that when we give users a product that they can use, such as platform, that nobody else can do, that is going to generate a lot of interest. That is going to make people buy Dash, hold Dash. So I think that is, another use case on top of just the payments, right? So we have payments, and now we'll have a secondary one. Well, we have others, right? Like, swaps between the exchanges and other things. But
I wonder how much of this kind of stuff could be done from like an external team. Like if someone managed to get a big bag from the treasury or from donations or from a grant elsewhere to just start implementing like a ZK extension block, and then just, I'm sure obviously core needs some input into it to make sure it all works out, but I mean, that might be fun. Would it be great to have everyone not hitting you up for when everything all the time? And don't you want
I would love.
Would you love to share the when burden amongst other teams too? That would be great.
Oh, it would be great. It would be great. I don't think that it will be as easy as some people might think, right? Like often the people that are able to do this work are either very, very highly paid, or B, are doing it out of passion. And if somebody is doing, that out of passion and are willing to take less money, they probably would be working for, the source of it, which is Zcash.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, here's the thing. What I wonder. I wonder if there's ways around that. Like, obviously, one it'd be to very highly pay someone, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds great if you have the money.
Mm-hmm.
A great man once said Dash can afford this, and he turned out to be wrong. But eventually, we can go back to affording things. But yeah, I wonder if there's some ways of getting something done. Like, be interesting to tell. But the thing is also, Dash is breaking new ground in all. I mean, there's the backports, but other than the backports, it's breaking a lot of new ground all the time. Everything in core. There are like tons of new stuff. Platform is like, there's some Cosmos stuff here and there and stuff like that, but a lot of it is like new stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, like like all the fee reimbursements that we have. Like another feature that we're working on right now is provable randomness on platform, which would allow basically all games to be played there, and
yeah,
like many different types of games without a central dealer, which would open up like pretty much most chance games.
yeah. So, but the point is like to copy someone else's work, kind of thing. Seems, although very difficult because of the moon math involved with anything Zcash. Seems like it's not like you have to hire like another 12 developers. You might have to hire like a few.
Well, I mean, the problem becomes, right, when you I don't, as far as I understand, it's very hard to mix our chain with Z with
Zcash,
like
zeroed out stuff.
ZK.
yeah, the ZK proofs. Very, very hard. So we'd have to have a side chain, and if we had a side chain, why not have a CM Arena? I think that the right approach here is to develop inter-blockchain communication in platform and have basically have multiple chains. So we would have two sister chains, right? We have the Dash Core chain and the Dash platform chain. And then we'd have tons of side chains from Dash platform. And one of those could be a ZK proof enabled chain.
Yeah,
And I think that would probably be the easiest way of getting something out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds about right. Now, I do have a really dumb question, right? Or I don't know if it's dumb, but it shows my ignorance in the thing. So, I know very, very little. I wouldn't say very, very, but I would say very little about Cosmos and the whole Cosmos ecosystem and stuff. And now I'm kind of learning that I need to know a lot about it because almost everything cool has something to do with Cosmos. And like as far as like Thorchain and Maya, for example, as far as some of these other interesting projects. And I believe somewhere in I don't know if it's a roadmap thing, but there's an idea of making Zcash like IBC compatible. And so I guess the question is, the IBC stuff, what exactly does that mean? And to have Dash become interoperable, what would that entail? And what are like the benefits from that?
Yeah, so Dash won't be IBC compatible out the gate, and the only reason for that is that we use threshold signatures, which are more efficient than what the IBC currently has in its repertoire of available systems to communicate between different chains. Right now, basically, what they have is you get the validator set from like chain A gets the validator set from another chain, right? And then it jumps block to block before 2/3 of the chain has changed, and then basically uh, validates a block, and then it basically is like jumping like 1,000 blocks at a time or a certain amount of blocks at a time until it gets to the end, and then it knows that the state one chain is able to know the full state of the other chain and validate the full state of the other chain. And that's basically how IBC works there. As far as I know, they only support Tendermint based chains and what's the other one? Polkadot?
Yeah, I guess that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, but to get Dash in there is actually pretty trivial, right? Because all you would really have to do is make a pull request to Tendermint that includes support for BLS signatures, the standard library of BLS, and BLS, and then in the validator set. For TenderDash, right, we don't use delegated proof of stake. Instead, we have a consensus mechanism called scalable Byzantine fault tolerance, which allows for threshold signatures on validator sets. There are pros and cons between the two. The big pro in our case is that the proofs and the ability to validate data on chain is extremely compact, which is exactly kind of the use case that we were aiming for. Basically, ask the chain anything at any time and get back a very small response proving the data proving your data. The negative is that all the nodes that are part of the validator set have to be of equal stake, which was not a negative for us because they all had 1,000 at the time and now 4,000, right? So, yeah, going into IBC, I do think that it's in our roadmap to go down that avenue and to integrate with, all the IBC supported blockchains.
Yeah,
and I think that's like going to be pretty big.
What
But
does it do?
for the first, what?
What does it do being integrated with all these other blockchains in a very practical end user kind of way?
Well, you can exchange assets between things that are, and you can prove things on other chains. You can do atomic swaps. You can do, I mean, in a very practical way. Yeah, you could. So let's imagine Maya integrates Dash, right? They're holding the entire Dash blockchain. Well, after that point, they wouldn't even need to.
Yeah, they wouldn't need to run a separate node and stuff.
No, they wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting because I believe like a lot of people, at least at ZCon, were talking about getting Zcash IBC compatible, which sounds like because there's no Zcash Evo or anything, and it's a purely Bitcoin based plus a bunch of cryptographic moon math stuff. It seems like a much taller order for them, but I guess in that thing it would be relatively easy for a wallet to kind of have both chains and just swap between them really easily. So like if someone of a Zcash maxi want to just do their thing, they could just flip into Dash and spend it like right away if they wanted to, for example. It'd be a lot easier to do things like that in this
Yeah.
future hypothetical.
Yeah, and also like another thing that we will build eventually, right, is like cross-chain identities. So, for example, we could have a the main platform chain. There's no anonymity on it. We can create another chain that has full anonymity, but has many drawbacks at the same time, because you don't really get anonymity without. I mean, at least in our day, maybe in 20 years is going to be different, but right now anonymity always has drawbacks, either like a bigger proof size or slower processing, or takes a long time to happen. There's always something that causes that's a negative, and the negative is often not worth it for the mass of users that just don't care sometimes. That's at least what I've seen. But a lot of users do care, right? Especially like if you're shopping at a store and you want to buy a present for grandma, but grandma knows a lot about crypto, and you don't want her to know what you're going to buy in advance, right? For Christmas, you want it to be a surprise. Actually, it works better for like your kid, right? Who knows? Who's like, "Ooh, did Daddy buy me that latest game?" And then the kid's gonna look in advance on the blockchain. Yeah, he did. Wait, he bought the wrong version of the game. Whatever. But we want some things to be anonymous, right? In our day-to-day lives as well. Also, like you buy an airplane ticket to Hawaii, right? Another example. You don't want when you arrive that somebody knows your entire balance and is staking you out with a knife, trying to like, oh, give me all your crypto, right? There's a lot of, completely valid use cases that as a society we take for granted that are hard to do in a open environment that is crypto. And really what annoys me about we had talked about laws earlier, is that as a developer, what I'm pushing for and what other people I know in the space are pushing for is not like to help criminals. It's basically to give our users the same experience that they have with centralized systems, but with decentralized systems where somebody can't just take all your money. So it is very sometimes sad to see, some lawmakers always think of the worst of humanity.
Yeah.
Instead,
sure.
like we're just trying to improve humanity.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely on the path to some cool stuff here, and we just need more dev stuff. The price is low, and then can devs do something? It's been the sort of theme of that. Well, in the terms of Evo, releasing Evo is something that devs could do to pump the price, but again, enough pressure on that thing. In the new year,
we want to release it when it's ready, right? Like there was a bug that we found. I mean, we're still in the this is a stupid bug phase. Sadly, we found a bug the other day. It like had me scratching my head for 2 days, right? And it was the sum tree. The sum trees basically stopped a transaction because it lost actually value out of nowhere. Somebody, what it looked like in the logs was somebody sent money to somebody, and then a certain amount was just missing. One dash was missing on testnet. And the sum trees basically said, nope, chain halt.
System worked.
which is exactly what it's supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
The balances don't match up. What actually happened was that the transaction was not between two identities. It was sending a transaction to yourself.
And so
So in the
that,
code,
yeah, it disappeared
Cool.
then.
yeah, because you can't send to yourself. And we did not have the check in the code to make sure that somebody wasn't sending money to themselves.
Yeah, which is funny
Very
because
tough, but
it is kind of funny
no.
because like I guess that's also a difference with like UTXO systems is because I've sent money to myself plenty of times into one of the addresses, but that's because it's usually from address to
Yeah,
address,
exactly.
and so it just
And,
yeah.
no, I mean it's like not sending money to yourself. It's like sending money from one address to the same address.
What happens if you try to do that? By the way, let's just say you have like
In,
five dash in a single address. You try to send that five dash with no change, like all the way to the same address. What happens if you try?
you can do that in Bitcoin.
And so then, but
And Dash,
so then what happens? You just like the
you just pay the fee,
and then if
192 duffs.
so then it just doesn't it just works slash doesn't do anything.
Doesn't really do anything, but yeah, you pay. I mean, you lose 192 duffs, and you have a new transaction.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Coinday is destroyed. Has
Yeah,
changed.
Yeah, CoinDay's destroyed, and it proves that you can spend that input.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
but it
without
also isn't. I mean, ideally, guys, you should never reuse addresses because you leak your public key when you do. And if there's ever a quantum computer, it can take your money.
well, if there's a quantum computer, you'll be the first to own one. Am I right?
Nope, it will not be me.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm yeah. I think that we are like at least 10 years away from a quantum computer, unless AI builds one for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see how it shake out. But that's definitely the wrong thing to be worrying about at the present time, probably. But
Exactly.
well, to start like a wrap up segment, just like marketing and biz dev stuff. So first off, you said you're happy that you're not going to have to deal with that bullshit anymore. So
Well, I mean, I didn't actually really deal with it. The problem
Yeah.
is that whenever there was a problem, somebody would come to me, and I was like, okay, I'm dealing with, multiple teams. Yeah, I did not have the bandwidth. So very happy that I'm not, I can focus on the parts that I am good at, not the parts that I know very little about.
yeah, absolutely. The thing is, Dash has a lot of similarities to Zcash in this regard. It's been super tech and development heavy as far as like output, and it's the difference between there's a huge difference between Dash and Zcash in this regard though, which is one of the reasons why you don't see me clawing to Zcash for trying to work for them and stuff because like Dash has core protocol and obviously Evo, right? But like the base protocol is good. It's a solid foundation to build stuff off of. But Dash also has some really great product, like end user product stuff. Like as far as the mobile wallet, the Android one, I should be very clear about. The Android mobile wallet is fantastic. It works really well. It's super easy to use, but also has like the right kinds of integrations like the topper on ramp and things like that. And once you start getting usernames in and you get mixing in, it's going to be like the killer app right there as far as, especially once you get like a stable coin in there and stuff. But that's a different thing. And Maya and all the other cool stuff. The point is, this is something you can sell and take to people. But not just that, like whoever got Dash into Bitrefill did a really good thing, and I think it has something to do with Bitrefill also it was early days. Like there was a few gift card services, and Bitrefill wasn't like the titan that it is today. It wasn't like the ubiquitous thing. But that's like a huge benefit to Dash, and I'm really hoping to keep buttering Sergey up so he never takes Dash off that thing, because it's honestly like we're probably still there because like I'm a huge pusher of that, and Sergey likes the unbanked story, and then my other buddy spends like 6 to 10 grand at a time through Bitrefill to buy like building supplies and stuff for his job. So if it weren't for us throwing all that Dash volume through, who knows?
Hey, I use good refill too.
Nice.
Me too.
Congratulations. But the point
I'm
is,
sure a lot of people do.
the point is like the Bitrefill short list of supported coins is very short. It's basically Bitcoin and Litecoin and Dash. And then there's like Doge and there gives a crap. And then there's a few different ETH tokens and stable coins and stuff. But as far as like Bitcoin Cash isn't on there, Nano's not on there, Zcash is definitely not on there, Monero's definitely not on there, etc. It's super useful. And then Spritz, we were the first coin that they agreed to add. They added Bitcoin slightly before, but it was because we pitched them first, and then everyone who's used Spritz with Dash says it's a fantastic experience. We don't have instant send yet, but we're working on getting to do that. It's so just those two, I can just pitch anyone to be like in the U.S. and in a lot of other countries too. Hey, you could live on crypto with just these two, and then Swappin is like the European Spritz, and you pay. I know people that pay all their bills in Europe using Swappin. They accept Dash. They don't accept Zcash. So there you go. And so there's like so much, and then Dash has this, 400,000+ follower Twitter account that in Twitter's the place to be in the future, right? And it's been kind of like left by the wayside. Now I know that the Matt Fellow is volunteering to help a little bit, but we have all these resources at our disposal, all these great things, and just sitting around like in the metaphorical warehouse. And that's something I'm very excited to do is in the coming months, just start amplifying the crap out of that. Like start really using it for the fullest extent, because there's a lot of other projects that don't have anything near like this. And we have some really good stuff to stand on. So that would be great. And yeah, I'm sorry Marina didn't get to talk very much because everyone else is pontificating, but that's fine. She's going to be a great asset helping us get where we're going. And yeah, we're going to, can devs do something? Well, can marketers do something? How about that, right? We're going to hopefully get some extra much needed attention and hopefully bump onto the project. But that'll be fun.
I'm looking forward so much to not have to hear when Evo.
Well, listen,
Soon.
it doesn't end.
Soon.
It doesn't end there.
Yeah, that's true. What's the next one?
What is the next one? Is it going to be when IBC? Is it going to be
When smart contract? Yeah,
When smart contracts?
yeah, that's gonna be the next win, right?
The thing is that like I think a lot of people don't realize this. You can do maybe 80% of functionality that most apps need just with the current system. There's some more advanced now because we have JSON schema, right? So that deals with validation. So you can put like advanced validation into your data contract, saying like if this and not that and things like that. But it's not Turing complete. But yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
And the other thing is the Dash Direct 2.0, whatever it's called, this
CTX spend.
CTX spend.
Yeah, which needs a new rebrand.
Totally.
At this point, I don't know why. I mean, nobody's ever heard of anything that bad that ends with TX, right?
FTX spend.
Couldn't
Listen. I get a lot of this could be after party conversation, but like first off, the thing has to ship. Let's see it come out. But after that, if he doesn't change the name to something better, I'm just going to call it FTX Spend at every single interval until he gets the hint and freaking changes it. Because
honest mistake.
Yeah, honest mistake. But even then, it's a clunky name anyway. But even if it
The
was
reason I brought it up is we got a lot of marketing mileage off the original Dash Direct. So just getting that back for Dash would be huge, I think.
Are legally, is he able to call it Dash Direct?
Maybe not, but I'm just saying the functionality that it gave us was crucial. So
It would be nice if it had kept the same name. That's possible.
I mean, it was a fantastic thing, and the thing is, unfortunately, like businesses make money by serving customers, right? And the problem is all businesses, including Bitrefill, don't have the volume from any one or few chains, or any one or few sources. So they have to be like catch-all. And the problem is, so Bitrefill has a new page where you have to select the wallet before you pay the invoice. You can hit skip and just go right to the QR code and address and stuff. But it's just so many like, oh, which wallet are you using? Like, I hate that. No one's going to do that. It sucks. And having a streamlined user experience that you're not trying to be like, well, some people want to buy in bulk for this thing. It's like, no, we just want to spend at the point of sale as fast as possible. That experience is what made Dash Direct really good. And I know Zcash people, I know Monero people, etc., who bought Dash specifically to use Dash Direct. And I think we can... I'm a little bit more that ship has sailed in my mindset on that because, Ionia went away and, we'll see if Ash can pull it off and keep it up. We'll see. But I'm not banking on it. But, there's
he's got a different approach. He's not even thinking in that direction at all. So he's thinking about his own company, his own branding, whereas Marshall was very smart. He was able to leverage the Dash community to make it go viral. And like you said, it was a Dash Direct. We felt like we owned it. It was something that we were very much involved with as a community, and so we all got behind it. Even I did here from Australia. I can't even use it. Never used it, but I loved it. I loved what it was doing. But with the CTX band, it just feels really soulless. I'm sorry. So. Yeah, I don't think it's the right approach because you really need to get a community behind it. Choose one and just go with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, there's a lot of cool things coming up. What I would ask, though, finally, is what do you guys want to see? I mean, obviously, we just growed Quantum about a million things. When EVO, when smart contracts, what's IBC? Do we want it? How all that? Is EK this? All that stuff. Most of it was my fault. I'm sorry. But
it's what you want to see.
Yes, that's what I want to see. But my question is from the viewers at home and you guys. What do you want to see out of me and Marina's work? Like, what are some things other than I just wanted to pump it and do well and all the vague stuff? Yeah, obviously we're going to go into the moon and stuff. But what specific things would you guys like to see?
I think the living off crypto message really, really works. I think people need to experience crypto and use it for what it's designed to be used for, rather than just speculating on it in Binance and never taking custody of the coins at all. I think that's really, really key, because once people do that and they feel that empowerment, that freedom that it gives them, they see it in a different light. And then they also become less price sensitive as well, because they're no longer thinking about buying the next coin that's going to pump like bonk or whatever the hell it is. They're now thinking more about what this coin can do for me and how it's going to free me from the fiat world, right? The banking world, and what comes next with central bank digital currencies and stuff. So I think that's really powerful. powerful narrative, and yeah, I just want to see more of that.
I have some thoughts on that, but let's everyone else go ahead. Any
Yeah.
other things?
I'd say, how do you get more community members, especially MNOs, to participate more? That's a big one. I mean, that's what you're working on, but it's just like, how do you get the ones that would not ordinarily have always been silent to just do a few more tweets, a few more Reddit posts, whatever their choice of platform is, to do that. I think that would help a lot. And also the dash amplification group, we need to get more people in there. Like that's a
Yeah, the Twitter
you could
group.
maybe talk more about. It's just the list, right?
Yeah, so anyone who it's a private Twitter message, and I have to say, like as I started to learn, like I monetized my personal Twitter account, got over 5 million impressions in the last 3 months. I've been
Nice.
really cranking up the Dash community account. Yeah, I've been studying intensely, especially this particular platform, how to grow on that one. And one thing I noticed hasn't been really talked about amongst these public tips, but I notice every community does it. And I'm in a few. I'm in some Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin groups and stuff too. But they have these groups where anytime something happens, they just like share it in a Twitter DM. I know people who are trying to grow their Twitter account do just randomly DM people they think might retweet it and stuff like that. And this is like how it works. So if you want to get into the group to like everyone jump on and retweet this big thing, kind of like I do the swarm in Discord, but I kind of save that for the big hits. There's like a few tweets a day that come in the Dash thing in this group. So if anyone wants to do that, let me know. We'll put you in there. Sam, any thoughts? Any thoughts on what you'd like to see other than a bigger budget through Pomp?
No, actually, I'm just happy you're doing it.
Nice. I'm glad.
I'm very ecstatic about that. Yeah, just the question then becomes like I know you guys are going to focus on marketing the most at the beginning. Should business development? Should you guys be doing business development, or should it be its own outfit later? This is a
Yeah.
question for you.
I mean, the real thing is, first off, we're doing it because no one else is doing it, kind of thing. But also, I think that we've demonstrated that we can get it done through like getting Spritz and Maya on board, right? And those are two huge integrations.
Mm.
And so if we did that, if we can do that full time, well, what else could we do? And I also, a good thing about having this podcast, not just the Dash one, but this channel, is it's really been a great networking thing. And that's exactly how I got Spritz and Maya on board. Is I first invited them to show their stuff on the podcast, and then use that conversation to be like, hey, why don't we slip a little D in there while we're at it? You know, why don't you get Dash in there? And it worked. Like it's a great, not really a bait switch because it's a good faith everything, right? I do want to talk to these people and stuff, but like, and obviously having Chad Bareford on the podcast, I think the second time he mentioned the Maya protocol is how I learned they even existed to begin with. And so basically to separate those entities, if it's applicable, I would probably honestly, I'd rather probably do some of the biz dev stuff than the marketing kind of stuff anyway, probably. But I don't know. The point is do it all, do all we can, and hire more people. But like if we start to get to where we have like, let's just imagine a fantastic feature where we got like 12 people or something, then maybe we're like, all right, maybe we'll see if we want to split this up and get other things going. But I think that everyone knows me. I'm a big fan of splitting up different entities in a highly centralized ecosystem, right? To like get as many separate entities as possible. But at the same time, the number one thing is to get the things done. And so, like, some people like who has a dash.org email address, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, sure, at one point that might be a super important problem to worry about, but right now the point is someone answering these emails from these exchanges and partners and stuff? Is someone getting new integrations? Is someone promoting the thing? It's like, if it's one guy doing everything, we'd rather have it be like a bunch of guys in different countries that don't depend on each other, but one guy is better than no guys, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing, the final thought on that kind of the more people living on Dash kind of thing. I've been thinking about this, about how to do what's the unique selling proposition of Dash, and amongst all the other cryptos, like who's the like Monero is the most cypherpunk in terms of like the perception, right? This is the, you know, it's like, just use Monero, private by default, screw the banks, we want to get delisted, like all that, like Ryan talk is like very Monero in that whole thing. And then like Litecoin's like, well, we're the number one alternative to Bitcoin. And then Bitcoin Cash was like, oh, we're the cash people. And like, where does Dash fit into those models? And in the practical sense, Dash is just better than all of them, except not necessarily on the privacy front with Monero, but as far as like everything else. And so it's hard, but that's not a strong narrative, right? You can't go, hey, you know, all these other coins that you do, you know, like Litecoin and that, we're like that, but we do all that but better. Okay, well, that's not a
Yeah, we have
narrative.
a problem. We definitely have a problem with.
So one thing we do have an advantage on is ability to, like, Litecoin is pretty useful if you wanted to live all on crypto today. You know, it's like, as far as it's in a bunch of services, all that kind of stuff, the fees are pretty low. You know, they probably will be low for a little while longer unless they get too many more monkey JPEGs on the chain, whatever it is. But the problem is, like, very few people in Litecoin are actually doing that. Some people are spending it, sure. But as far as like 100% living, like me living all on Dash, I have some friends that do that. Eric Olson, remember Age of Doge? He says he's living basically all on Dash. Same with Kanuker. Same with, like, there's people of people who are living all on anything else, there's very few. And so I think if we can start to differentiate that and be like, Dash is digital cash you can live on today. And whenever the Monero people talk about, yeah, just use Monero, it's like, how? Oh,
Exactly.
well, scramble for fucking excuses, bullshit. Go fuck yourself. Use Dash, right?
That's the point I was trying to make earlier.
Yeah.
Get people to use these coins.
And so I think
the other day there was somewhere where I couldn't pay with Dash, and so I had to use Doge, and it was horrible. Like, just getting the chain synced took ages. I mean, it was completely congested. There was not much WoW at all. I couldn't find a node that would sync the chain, and it took several hours to get synced, and then eventually I could send the transaction and get it through. But it was a pain. Like, when you actually go to use that network, you realize it's broken. Doge is actually broken. Half the time it doesn't even sync. Now, contrast that with Dash. Well, it works. You know, and you said, like, that, you know, comparing us to Litecoin. Well, okay, so Litecoin's got the same block time as we do, but we've got instance and chain locks. Okay, so it's instant and your transaction's final. Does Litecoin have governance? No. Do you have a say in anything that happens in Litecoin as a Litecoin holder? No, you don't. In Dash, you do. You can vote in the governance and actually have a say. And a lot of our proposals lately are quite marginal. Like, only a few votes can knock it into funding, yes or no. So you don't even need a large amount of Dash to really contribute to the network. It's just, there's so many incremental things that we've done, nothing big, but just a lot of incremental things that we've done that have distinguished ourselves as being different from Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin or ZEC or any of these things.
Yeah. Well, the big thing that it does have, which all these little stitchy together things can be encompassed into, is it's digital cash that works now. It just works. It works now.
Exactly.
Try it out. And anyone is like, well, but
experience it.
Litecoin this. Okay, well, the the famous chain halt day, which, I'm sorry, Sam, I just saw a few more gray hairs spring out just mentioning it. But I did use Litecoin to buy something at Bitrefill, and I couldn't even use it because I didn't get confirmations in time, because I forgot that you have to do confirmations with freaking Litecoin. I'm like, oh shit! Like, I haven't had to deal with this nonsense in years because I mostly use Dash. And so it just works. It works today. Look at, and if the big question, right, is if you're serious, or the big challenge, if you're serious about this digital cash nonsense that whatever other project thinks that they're somehow better at, do it. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your digital money where your digital mouth is, and actually use it. And the thing is, obviously, me as the living on crypto guy, okay, that's fine. But we need a lot of them, right? We need to be able to say all the cool people in Dash are living on it, as opposed to all the Monero people are shit posting about it on Twitter, but they're kind of using fiat too. And that's the ultimate undercut of the narrative that you can do, is just like, you talk about it, we do it.
Exactly. It's like your friend that was collecting all those sats, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he got an unpleasant surprise when he had to pay $800 in fees to move it, consolidate it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only when you actually start to use this stuff that you realize what's what. And then you begin to go, okay, so maybe Bitcoin's got the best price action at the moment, but try using it. It's absolute hell.
Yeah.
And then that means that the price action is completely unjustified, isn't it? It's just
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, like when I use Bitcoin, I just know that it's going to take like 2 hours. Like it's just, but it's fine for me. Like it's faster than an international wire, right?
Is it cheaper though?
I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that I'll do a Bitcoin transaction probably once every 3 months, right?
Yeah.
Just like I do an internet. It's not made for more than that.
But what if you could use Dash for that instead and just didn't have to pay wouldn't it? That should be the Dash meme.
Well, I mean, the time that I use Bitcoin, it's just because somebody only accepts Bitcoin. Or something
of
like
course.
That.
And you should yell at them. Everyone should yell at people every time. They have to take a verbal beating with that because it's nonsense. But the point is, there's two things. First, there's two elements to that. The biggest element is Dash just works, and it works today. It just works. Mm-hmm. It's going to work for you. You can live off of it. It works. No one else can compete with that. And then on the subtext of that is crypto's fake, Dash is real. Is everyone else is a poser. Like everyone else is like talking about this stuff. Everyone's like, Bitcoin upset the banks, while you have your fully custodial wallet of Satoshi and stuff. Or like, oh, Bitcoin Cash, everyone can spend it. Well, okay, well, there's that guy in Townsville. He's doing great. He's not a fake, but then everyone else is. And it's kind of funny because every time I have Twitter arguments with these people, and they're like, well, why you can live off Bitcoin Cash. I'm like, show me. And then the next week, every service I talked about has like a bunch of comments. Add Bitcoin Cash, please. Like all the Nano people start swarming Spritz financing. You should add Nano, because they didn't even know it existed, because they weren't actually freaking using it at all until I like whip it out on the table and just say, what do you think about that? And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they have to play defense. But that's great. Dash should make them play defense. That should make them challenge their cypherpunk values that they talk about. And like, oh, you run your own node. Okay. To do what? To send your swipey card somewhere? Come on. Like, what are you actually doing? Are you actually living off this stuff? What happens if you lose your bank account tomorrow? Like you say, oh, I got Monero in case I lose it. It's like, that works if you have if you got your landlord take it, if you have your network of peer-to-peer people. Some people might have that figured out. Most of them don't. And if they do, they deserve a high five from Dash. Any Monero user who's living 100% on that stuff deserves a high five from us. But the rest of them,
I don't see how that's possible.
The rest of them can go screw themselves because they're not doing it, right?
No.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are like, I met some new dude at some meetup yesterday, and he was like, oh, you're in crypto, what do you do? And like, I actually use it. Oh, you mean you use it? I never use it. Like, What do you use? Dash? Oh, I haven't heard about Dash in like 10 years. Like, what's going on with that? Really? Dash is what you're using? I'm like, yeah, because I use it. And he's like, oh man, that's just so crazy. That's wow, it's wild. And like, wake up and smell the roses, people. Like, fiat's coming, CBDC's coming. We're gonna get smashed if we don't freaking start living free today. You want to like, oh, I get so mad at the eCash people sometimes because they're doing almost everything Dash is doing, which I guess is a compliment, right? They're doing the instant transactions, the staking hybrid system, they're all that kind of stuff. But they're still saying like one day we can all live off of eCash. It's like, why are you creating another shitcoin when you can already use this today? And they're like, well, someday I'll say, okay, well, why don't you live 100% on Dash now, and then next year you might be 90% Dash, 10% freaking eCash. No, I'm gonna wait for eCash to be like, okay, get out of here.
Probably because they hold bags.
Yes.
Yeah, they hold it. Yep.
That's
Again,
exactly it.
people's virtue
It's not-
signal.
It's not
Okay, well, before I turn this positive thing into an angry dump on everyone else, we should probably wrap it up and migrate into the after party. I'm getting fired
Everybody
up.
needs to get their bags in Dash.
Yeah.
That's what makes people interested. You don't get interested and then get bags. You get bags and then you get interested.
Well,
that's sad reality, and it
One-
is, and it's the same thing for everybody.
but here's the fun thing. The best way of acquiring a Dash back holder is to get someone to use it, buy a little, send it around. Oh wow, this works so great, and you start getting the forums, and you're like, buy a masternode and never spend the Dash again. Well, hopefully not, but like, it's like that's the party trick. The adoption is the party trick to get the bag holders. But I only care about the adoption, right? But if you get enough adoption, enough people run into enough Dash people who are actually you live off of Dash, awesome, and then they buy a bunch and don't live off of it. Okay, whatever. But the adoption is the front runner to the bag holding, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the opposite of what I just said, but okay.
Yeah, it's but that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing. We're all, maybe we're not all on the exact same page, but we're on the same chapter of the same book.
Yeah, we all have the same goal. We just have different strategies for achieving the goal. And what I'm saying is, when you give someone a bag of Dash, whether that's giving or ideally when they work for it and they earn a bag of Dash, that's when they start getting interested. You wait for people to be interested in it. They're not going to be interested in it until they have an incentive to be interested in it.
Yeah.
They're not going to go out and buy a bag just because we have bags and we are interested in it.
And that's
They need their
the ways that you can get people interested in it. There are many aspects of that, right? So, being a digital cash alternative to a better alternative to what they're currently using, that's one. Hopefully, platform will be another, like giving a service that they can only use on the Dash, ecosystem will be another. And, we just need to find more use cases, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Revenue generation, definitely.
That require people to get Dash. Products that require people to get Dash.
As easily as possible. And yeah, sounds great. All right, let's wrap this up, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Still o'clock. What do you guys want to show?
Dash.
Yeah.
I don't want to show anything.
Get the bag holding started.
Best
right here.
chain.
Yeah.
Get on Twitter.
Yes, that's a big thing. Get on Twitter. Follow @DashPay. There's gonna be some hot fire coming out of that thing. Use Spritz Finance or what is the one the bill one in Australia that XK uses? Bitrefill.
Bitfairies.
Bitfairies in Australia to pay all your bills. Use Swappin if you're in Europe and most of the world.
Yeah.
Use Bitrefill. It works great. Just about the whole planet over. Use it for everything. Use the Maya protocol through Eldorado or Thor Wallet to earn
Spritz.
yield and swap back and forth. And yeah, big one is Spritz. But
Use your crypto.
use it and pay one thing. Even if it's your like every month you go to one coffee place, you can buy a Bit Refill gift card for it or whatever. Do that. If you have one bill, like your electricity, but not your water bill. Okay, start with your electricity. Pay one.
Yeah.
Buy the extra.
That's what we made it for.
Yeah.
That's what we made this thing for. So use it. Like, people just speculate on it. And I think 90% of people seem to speculate on it. Use it. Do some transactions. Do some mixing or whatever Quantum was calling it before, like anonymizations, transactions.
Yeah.
Buy something with it. I mean, just
join your coins.
That's
private your send.
Once you experience that, then you'll have a different opinion on the whole space, and I think you'll actually like it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. It's gonna be exciting January. Mr. Pasta himself has agreed to be on the next installment of the podcast, so that'd be fun. So
Nice.
Awesome.
Think about things for that. And yeah, everyone have a happy new year. 2023 is going to be over. You're going to sneeze. You're going to drink a bunch. You're going to wake up, and then it's going to be over. Dashy New Year to all you guys. And,
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Yep. See you guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. See you next
All right.
year.
Thanks, y'all.